Wow.
Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 110th livestream from the Misfit Gamer Studios. I am your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussion. And this is D&D Discussions. On today's episode, we have another community creation coming from Dez. We have the Mercurialist, an Artificer subclass. This is going to be a very interesting one because as far as I can understand, or at least from the small hints that I've been given, this is somewhat of a mercury-based, maybe liquid metal, maybe some other kind of alterations on metal artificer. So I'm really interested to see where we go with this one. But yeah, we don't have any other real big updates for you today. We had a big long stream. I am extremely exhausted from that. Spent, I think, 6 hours on stream doing the back room today. So I'm exhausted, but I am still looking forward to this one. So we are going to get kind of right into it. I see that Dez is in the chat, so that is going to be fantastic. We don't have to take any longer to get started. So what is up, my dude? How you doing?
Shalom, my friends. Nah, dude, I'm excited. Yeah, we just had a nice, decent stream. The Misfit Tavern is coming along. I love the way that the wall is looking and everything. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see more as it goes. Like, you know, when you like watch like a time lapse of something, it's like it's weird to like visualize it as it's happening. It's like,
yeah,
okay,
right?
You're seeing all the different stages. Like you said, when you first got it, it was just a back room, you know, it was just a
Crappy back room,
you know. But now you've done all kinds of stuff with it. So nah, I'm here for it. It's dope.
Yeah. Surprisingly enough, like it doesn't seem like I did a whole lot today, but like my body feels it. Like just just constant going.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Des, what is going on? So this is one of Dez's earliest homebrews. They don't even consider it extremely well balanced, but that's all right. We'll be the judge of that. But still love the thematics and the tone of it. Well, we've already had quite the discussion over the name of it, by the way. The Mercurialist. That is quite the...
It's so hard for me to pronounce. Mercurialist.
Mercurialist. Like, yeah, it's very...
But I appreciate what it is. I appreciate, like, the verbiage of it. Like, naming something in this way, I feel like works and fits very well. And sometimes it's hard to find a name that, like, actually says what you want it to say. But again, I haven't gone through like the details of the class yet, but I feel like we're on the right track.
Well, let's find out if we are, because I'm really curious to kind of dive right into this one. And like I said, we don't really have any other updates. Things are going strong. I mean, we're still posting shorts right now. So yeah, everything else is just kind of we're riding that wave, man. So let's get started. And boom. All right, so let me get this switched over. So we have the Mercurialist, Artificer subclass from Dez. So let us begin. Description. One moment. Description. Living metal, mimetic polyalloy, the Mercurial. No matter what they call it, you command it. Through your study and hard work with metals, you have tapped into something that most would have considered impossible. You have given life to it. It moves, it thinks, it serves. The Mercurial is something new. Okay, so I'm definitely thinking living metal of some sort already. Definitely,
yes.
like okay, so you've almost just like you're getting to do something, you know, again, that hasn't been seen before. So I kind of like that vibe, right? You're not just yet another one of the stack, right? This is something a little bit beyond the standard. So I'm already digging the vibes.
Very different from their last submission, which was also kind of a body augmentation one, with the just enhancing your body with metal, and then basically turning into a lightweight transformer.
I see a pattern with this going here,
but I'm here for it.
Okay, kind of like that. Again, I love building the lore. I like that there's like multiple names potentially to build on it, but the Mercurial, like the idea of it of itself is in essence something that's untamed, and that you're the one that can tame it. Okay, I'm digging that.
Just as a quick side note,
what's going on, Hecate?
From an editor perspective, like when I've been creating these of recent, at the very least, I've always had some sort of artwork that goes right there under the description. We usually get to see like an idea of what the class is about or whatever the case may be. I didn't have one of those for here, and I wanted so badly to just go and look up like the T-3000 or whatever from like Terminator 3 and just like put it in there in one of his like morphing moments or whatever the case may be, but again, not knowing enough about the class, I don't want to do that. I don't know if it's like an entire entity. I don't know if it's like a part of your body. I don't know if it's just like a living weapon. So we'll see exactly how it goes down.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious already. It kind of works. This is heavily inspired by the T-1000 from T2. Okay.
There we go.
So so we were on the right path, because that's exactly what we were thinking it was going to be. It's going to be some sort of like living metal, liquid metal type of thing. Okay, cool.
Now I should have done it.
All right, so So are we saying that right? Is it the Mercurialist or is it the Mercurialist? Like, is the I in it? Are you supposed to be trying to say Mercury and then alist, or is the I kind of subdued so it's Mercurialist? You know what I mean? I don't know if it's Mercurialist or what you were saying is
Mercurialist.
Mercurialist. So I'm just really curious which you intended to be the pronunciation of it.
Interesting.
Because again, this one is the Mercurial, or is the I guess that's the Mercurial. So it would be the Mercurialist. So I guess you do pronounce the I.
Yeah,
Mercurial. Yeah, Mercuriist. Okay. Or Mercurialist. Yeah. All right, so you always have certain spells prepared after you reach particular levels in this class. As shown in the Mercurialist spell table, these spells count as artificer spells for you, but they don't count against the number of artificer spells you prepare. So at third, you get Catapult and Hail of Thorns, Cloud of Daggers, that's a nice one. Wrist Pocket, I'm not familiar with that one.
Wrist Pocket is basically you have a limited bag of holding in your wrist for a certain period of time.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha. Wrist Pocket. Okay, that makes sense. Mirror Image, Tiny Servant, Fabricate, Summon Construct, Conjure Volley, interesting, and then Steel Windstrike. Okay.
That one I'm not familiar with myself.
That's a lot of attack ones as far as I can see.
Yeah.
Interesting though, you get like, so Catapult's kind of an attack one because it basically allows you to take anything that you throw.
Yep.
Hail of Thorns, Cloud of Daggers are attack. So Wrist Pocket is definitely beneficial. It's more of a it's a support
utility.
ability.
Yeah.
Mirror Image is definitely support. Tiny Servant is support. Fabricate is support. So it's weird. You get this like 3 attacks, and then you get these like 4 non-attacks.
Yeah.
And then you get 3 attacks. So it's going to be a very weird
I'll say
with magic.
I like the fact that at the very least Mirror Image has a lot of combat use. Tiny Servant not so much. Fabricate not so much. Summon Construct, yeah.
It would have almost been nice to have like just like more of a pairing of like 1 combat, 1 utility each time.
Interesting.
You
Yeah,
know what I
that's
mean?
fair.
Kind of have like a nice little balance instead of having like 2,
I
one of
mean,
each.
if
2, one of
you
each.
consider catapults, if you consider catapult a little bit of both, because catapult can be attack, but could also be utility. Like in case I wanted to take the end of, imagine I wanted to take a what do you call it, a grappling hook, and I wanted to catapult it way higher than
it could be considered a utility.
You know what I'm saying?
That's fair. That's
so
fair. Okay.
almost.
Okay.
Almost. But again, both Conjure Volley and Steel Wind Strike sound very combat.
But you would want that later down the road. Fun fact about Catapult is that they see a lot of people misunderstand it. Anything you can see in range 60 feet is launched 90 feet, effectively at a maximum range of 150 feet.
Yes. So it doesn't have to be something I'm holding. It doesn't have to be anything
I
next
just thought
to
it was.
me.
I didn't even think it had to be something you were holding. I just thought you had to be like the thing that motivated it. I didn't realize you could just. It had to be anything you could see.
Yeah, so I can like pick something up behind you and like launch it towards
What's
the back of your
what's
head.
the I'm assuming that there's a weight limit.
I think it's like 5 to 10 pounds. Let me check.
Hey, that's good if you like to throw daggers if you ever miss.
Yup.
If you use Catapult and fling it right back to him.
Yup.
1 to 5 pounds. Gotcha.
1 to 5 pounds. Okay.
Okay. It's a good ability, though, especially that early. I would take it.
It's one of my favorites. The only problem I have with it is when you try to hit somebody with it, it's a saving throw. And saving throws frustrate the dickens out of me because it has nothing to do with what my skill set is except for my spell save DC. And my spell save DCs usually aren't that good early on, which Catapult's a very early on spell. So
yeah.
They're like saving out of it more than half
but
the time
that's where
when
you
I
have
use
to get
it.
into that's where you have to get into the thing of like, then don't target them, target near them. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like throw a rock at the boulder that's above them to get the boulder to fall on them. Right. Like there's a lot you can go on to. I didn't realize that you could upcast Catapult, so it's an additional 5 pounds per level per spell slot.
Oh, I didn't know that it increased the weight of it. Does it also increase? It probably also increases the damage.
You would think so. Okay, so at 3rd level. Okay, so what do we get in normal Artificer? Give us a quick recap of 1 through 3.
Artificers 1 through 3. So we're starting off with magical tinkering. It says you've learned to invest a spark of magic into the mundane object. Basically, you can kind of create like a small magical toy, trinket, whatever, and it can do various different things. It can like emit sound. It can walk across surfaces. It can create static visual effects, make it appear on flat surfaces and stuff like that. So you can do cool things. I think you start off with like up to your proficiency modifier number of these a day. Like none of them are really combat oriented. They're very
but it is a lot of interplay with the character. I remember.
Yeah.
That. Okay. I remember we talked about that in the last subclass. We talked a lot about that one.
Yep. And then you get spellcasting at first level. One of the few classes you actually get spellcasting at first level, I think. Well, actually, no, they all. Yeah, never mind. I think they all do. But so tools required. You produce your artificer spell effects through your tools. You have, and you can use these tools as your spellcasting focus. So basically, like if you have like, you know, Smith's tools, even Thieves tools, you can use all of these things as your spellcasting focus for whatever you're doing. Basically, like symbolizing you creating whatever. Like I like the idea. I was listening to one of your reviews that I wasn't here for, and you were talking about artificers, and it almost makes you feel like they're putting together a gadget real quick and then throwing that out there, and that's what the spell is, you know? That's kind of the vibe that I get when it's like your tools or your spell casting. It's like I'm using these tools to create something. Like I have a lot of stuff prepared on me, and I just take it, screw this together, solder this real quick, and then chuck it.
Yeah.
And then it goes and does whatever the spell's supposed to do.
Okay.
You know? But no, I really like that. And then after spell casting, you get ritual casting, and then at second level, you get the ability to infuse items, which is cool. And there's all different types of
like 4 or 5
you can do.
Options, right?
Well, there's a bunch of different options, but you only get to choose like 2 of them at that level, and then you can
and then get more of them. Okay,
yeah, as you level up.
All right, and then at third level, you choose your your whatever. What is it called?
Artificer specialist.
Specialty, whatever.
Yes.
It's weird that they call it, you know, specialist, not specialty, but
yeah,
you know, makes sense. Okay, so at third level, you get tool proficiency. You adopt this specialty. You gain proficiencies with Smith's tools. If you already have it, you gain proficiency with one other type of artisan's tools of your choice, which pretty standard for everything. So the Mercurial, level 3. The Mercurial is a mass of living metal that you have created through your specific field of study. The shape, type of metal, and appearance in the Mercurial is in its dormant state are open to the player's interpretation. I like that. The Mercurial is bound to you via the magics used to create it. If separated from you for longer than an hour, it will seek you out, making straight path towards your current location, which you will always know. If your Mercurial is destroyed, you can spend a long rest to recreate it. This will require metal or ore totaling in at least 20 pounds. Okay. So I'm liking the feel of that so far. It's something that you created. It's not just like, you know, just something that exists, right? Like you've actually made this thing. So it's kind of like a familiar. It only takes a long rest to get it back, so it's, you know, very much like tied to your character, but you do have to have some sort of material to get it back, so I do like that. Now, the idea that it does take a metal, right? So it's indicating that the thing that you have, the thing that you're dealing with is the sentient aspect of it, in my opinion. Like from a high point of view, the Mercurial is the intelligence. The body is just... you worked a way for the intelligence to control a body, right, of metal. But the Mercurial, like again, if its body is destroyed, it'll come back, and you just need to provide it a new body, right?
Got it.
So,
interesting.
And the fact that the individual can like decide its appearance, like the player can decide its appearance, like that means that, you know, each one can have, like, you know, you could have a gold, I could have silver, like depending on our favorite metals. But in this particular case, if one gets destroyed and all you can find is copper, maybe you roll around with a copper one for a little bit.
Interesting.
You know,
I mean, it's you're still same one.
Yeah, it's yours intellectually, but physically. And what's interesting is you could base a whole campaign around that, where different metals would be harder to obtain or have different properties. So like you might be able to make it like copper, but it can't hold its form easily around heat, because copper melts, you know, easily, right? So you'd have to work on getting it to a point to where you could upgrade its metal type to handle different situations.
Interesting.
You know what
like
I mean?
the idea of like fusing it with different metals or whatever, just kind of playing on,
or just like you could change up its body to where if you're gonna go do, you know, like a graveyard or a bunch of undead, you can make your Mercurial change form and you can give it iron ore instead. So now it itself is like good against like ghosts and whatnot. So I'm just thinking like there's a lot to be said when it says that the player can decide what metal it is, but if it gets destroyed, all you need to do is provide a metal. So really we're talking about ascensions here. You are just providing it a body, kind of like a golem.
Interesting.
So that tells me that I could also change up the body later down the road, or potentially do alloys. You know, like have one that's iron and silver, so it's like, you know, potentially good against like undead.
Right.
So yeah, really interesting already what we're getting like lore wise from that. Spellcasting focus. You can use your Mercurial as a spellcasting focus for your artificer spells, which makes sense. While in its dormant state, the Mercurial can effortlessly attach itself to your person or follow closely behind you in whatever shape you desire. It requires an action to change shape or form of the Mercurial. So that might be the first, that could be considered OP a little bit, in terms of now you have a find familiar that can be on you or away from you, that will automatically always find you, and it can take any shape that you want, you know, within a certain size, right? Like,
I would say that's still less powerful than most wizards find familiar.
Is it?
The spell. Because that one, you can actually see through its eyes up to a certain distance. You can disappear it into a pocket dimension as a bonus action or a free action, I forget which. And you can remanifest it. It does take some material to recreate and resummon another one.
Right.
So it'll cost you like a little bit, but I still think that's way more valuable. And you pretty much do get to pick the form that it can choose. Like, their forms can even potentially fly. I don't know if this would be able to turn into a flying object.
I mean, I don't know. It depends on, you know, how you read it, I guess. Because it says whatever shape you desire. So, I mean, if you could technically make it a bird and it could follow you. So, yeah, there's definitely
true.
different ways to look at that. But also considering that the wizards find familiar is also something that they have to earn and keep, whereas this is something that you just have.
What do you mean earn?
Like find familiar isn't something that you're just given.
Well, I mean, I would say most wizards pick it when at character creation.
Right, but if you lose it, you would have to go like do it again. This is basically like automatic, right? Like I just look at this as like this is
it's a spell,
an
so
thing.
it's as automatic as casting the spell.
I still look at those as fundamentally different though, because having to cast a spell to do something versus you're given this as your class feature, right? Like,
I mean,
this is just going to automatically be with you.
Sure, yeah.
Because again, like you said, even though it's standard for wizards to choose it, it's not guaranteed.
That's true. It's not guaranteed. So like if having a familiar is something valuable to you, you might pick it. But if it's not, then
this is only 20 pounds. You also got to consider what size you can get out of 20 pounds too, right? Like whatever shape you want, but it's only 20 pounds.
Sure.
So you wouldn't really be able to make that into anything. Like you wouldn't be able to make it into a rideable steed.
Correct.
Because that's what I'm thinking,
Correct.
right? If I can have this thing follow me and take any form, I'm starting to wonder, like, that could be very useful to have this literal living metal thing that can take any form I need it to. I could suddenly, with an action, have a bodyguard, a suit of metal, a steed made of metal, right? I'm thinking that's a little bit, but it's 20 pounds.
Yeah.
So even stretched out, it's probably not going to do a whole lot with 20 pounds. I might be able to have a small puppy. Like, I might be able to have a small metal puppy or a cat, which would be kind of cool. Maybe a crow.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to have, like, a falcon. Well, maybe, 20 pounds of metal. Maybe, like a hollow falcon.
Maybe.
You know? Interesting. I've considered adding the metal types as a mechanic, but at the time it was too much work. Yeah, I do think having different metal types, like having different effects
like
on
the
metal,
gold
and I don't even think like you could write all that out, but I think that would also just be fun dynamically. Like as you create it, there's just going to be different challenges. Were I to redo this one, I'd specify the limitations of the form. Specifically, it can't fly, and only materials that float on water can be capable of swimming. Okay.
Interesting.
And that makes sense too. Like, so again, if it can take any form you want. Now, see, here's a cool thing though. If it can take any form I want, I could technically form it into a hollow ball, like a buoy, and have so even though it's metal, If it's big and thin enough, it will float. And therefore, I have a flotation device.
Technically, yeah, it should.
So even though it's only, and again, at 20 pounds, if it's thin enough, I could make a canoe. It would be a very thin canoe, but it would still float. As long as it was the right shape. So again, depending upon how you would allow...
How structurally sound it would be, like maybe if somebody attacked
it would basically be like a soda can boat. You would be able to sit in it, and it would keep you afloat, but that's it. Like, I'm just thinking for like life-saving purposes,
Interesting.
right? But yeah, I would definitely be the kind of player who I'd be like, so I got 20 pounds of metal. I can hammer 20 pounds of metal real fucking thin. Believe me. Let me think of what I can do with 20 pounds of metal. But yeah, so I do like it though. I kind of like that idea. It's just, I like the idea that Des is thinking about at least cleaning up and putting some limitations on it. Because it is just a little bit of it could be anything I want.
I think we talked about it on the last homebrew that we did, just adding the word mundane, right?
Yeah.
And just being like, hey, it can turn into any mundane thing. Like, it can look like a sleeve, or it can look like a glove, or it can, like stuff like that,
Yeah. Oh yeah, the hollow buoy, I would totally allow that too. One thing though that I do like about this sort of roleplay aspect, right? The sort of lore that we're getting in here is just the visuals that you could create, where it's like you walk up and it looks like you maybe just have a breastplate, and then it's like you just like reach behind to grab nothing, and then your breastplate turns into like a battle axe. You know what I mean? Because you grabbed it from behind, and then all of a sudden it disappears, and now it's like a battle axe. Or you're just like, oh, and then someone brings out a dog, and then you're just like, okay, you pull out your sword, and you slam it into the ground, like you're gonna stick it into the ground, and then it just melts into a different other dog. Like, I'm just imagining the different things I could do with that action of just like, no. But Des, this also makes an interesting question. Once you form your Mercurial, and I'm assuming it's 20 pounds worth of metal, I'm assuming that it's not intended to separate into pieces. So it's not like I could wear the Mercurial as a breastplate and then as 20 pounds, right? And then take 5 pounds of it off and make a blade. Like, and then have a separate dagger, a 5-pound dagger and now a 15-pound breastplate. I'm assuming that the Mercurial has to stay all in one piece.
I'm thinking that's the idea, especially kind of like how you were talking about earlier. If it's like its intelligence is the thing, and then this is just its body. It's like, how is that intelligence like separating into two different things to be able to contort and control and become whatever this other thing is?
And Des agrees, no separation. So yeah, it would be kind of cool though to turn your like what looks like your breastplate, right? And then you take off the top layer of your breastplate, turn that into your weapon, but you're still wearing the breastplate. Like that's a cool visual. I do like that. All right. So, all right. So we already know to clean up a little bit of just how much limitations you can on changing it. At the end of a long rest, you can create a new Mercurial if you have your smithing tools or alchemy's tools with you. If you already have Mercurial in this form, the first one immediately perishes. The Mercurial also perishes if you die, losing all of its magic that grants it movement and returning to a lifeless hunk of metal in the last position it had. The Mercurial can take one of 3 forms. Again, this also makes me really curious if you intended this to be, does the Mercurial have to be all one material? Because what would be really cool, right, is let's say you have a really precious metal or a really precious gem, or you have like stolen gold that you need to get somewhere, right? Imagine being able to like put it all in a pile with a little bit of iron, have make your Mercurial using all of this material. So the core of your Mercurial is the gold or the stashed thing, and then it just makes its outer body the other material. Like, so your Mercurial is just walking around, looks like a piece of iron or whatever that you're carrying, but when you get to your state, the place that you need to be, you disband it, and then you can crack it open, and inside is like the thing that I've been traveling with.
Interesting.
So again, thinking about ways that this could be really fun to actually try to play. So yeah, because I'm really curious if alloys is a thing. Like, can it be made of multiple materials, or is it intended to be one material, one metal, up to 20?
Right.
It can be okay. So it can take one of 3 forms. A mercurial weapon. The mercurial takes the form of a simple or martial melee weapon. You can choose the form that this melee weapon takes each time you choose the mercurial weapon function. You are proficient with it while you wield it. This weapon counts as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistances and immunities to non-magical attacks and damage. When rolling damage, the mercurial weapon, you may add your intelligence modifier in place of either the strength modifier or the dex modifier. So I would say I like the idea that this is one of its forms. I like the idea that you can choose the type of weapon. The 2 things I would clean up here, I don't think it's appropriate to say that you are proficient while you wield it, because that basically means that you can turn it into a weapon you aren't proficient with and instantly become proficient with it. That's how I read that.
Interesting.
So, again, if I'm not proficient in martial weapons, for whatever reason, but I make a martial weapon.
Yeah.
By this, it says I am proficient while I wield it. So it tells me that as long as I make one, and now granted, why would I not? I don't know what situation an artificer wouldn't be proficient with simple and martial, and maybe it's redundant. Maybe it doesn't need to say that you're proficient while you wield it, but it kind of indicates that you can create a weapon.
Does, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so so artificers don't get martial proficiency. So I would just say that in that particular case, I would just give this subclass martial proficiency. I think that sounds better than saying that your created weapon gives you proficiency with it.
Okay.
Right? For me, that just sounds better. Also, the next part that I have a little bit of a hard time with is, like, we just got this, level 3. And you're telling me I'm already getting through non-magical resistance? That sounds a little... I don't know any other situation where at level 3, innately, I now have a weapon that will attack anything that needs a magical weapon.
The warlocks get that pretty much out the gate.
It's their pack weapon, though, right?
That's their packed weapon.
So that's one subclass that the pack weapon acts as an... Okay.
I would also say that any caster gets that. Because
non-magical resistance weapon?
So, no, they get a basic attack that overcomes the resistance of those non-magical things. Because any cantrip that they would cast is going to not be affected by that. The resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. So any melee character, anybody that their job is to be like a front man, if they have a mundane weapon, which unless you, depending on what dungeons you're diving, whatever, blah blah blah, like who knows when you'll get that. There are a lot of creatures early on, just tough creatures as well as like magical creatures or ghosts or whatever, that have these resistances to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. And so there are a lot of times where they're just...
like non-magical, right?
Correct.
Okay,
correct. Non-magical
okay.
bludgeoning, yeah, not just like completely. And so that's why, like, one of the first hurdles it feels like you have to get over in 5th edition is finding some way to do damage to things that have resistance to, like a monk. Like, it doesn't matter how many times I hit you, everything I'm hitting you with is half damage until I get magical fists,
right,
where I can overcome that. Right now, I could have a magical weapon that I could find, hopefully, and then all my weapon damage will overcome that. But until I can like make sure that that's what's happening, like I could be doing half damage to 90% of what we're attacking if we're doing anything that has to do with the undead.
Yeah.
For a while. So
I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm not saying that I don't disagree with it at maybe a lower level, but again, straight out the gate as an innate thing that by just being this subclass you automatically get, for me that just it doesn't sound like it settles well with a balanced party. Like, I understand that, cantrips, like magic goes beyond magic resistance, but that's cantrips, that's magic, that's why you're a spellcaster.
Yeah.
This is a martial weapon that I suddenly become proficient with. that now also does magical damage. Well, not magical damage, but
it overcomes those resistances.
To me, it's a 1-2 punch where I'm like, if that's the case, why not just wait till level 5 to upgrade it? Just do that thing where at first it can become a weapon, right? Let me get used to the fact that I can turn it into a weapon or these other things. Then let it become the next time I do it. Now it's magical, right? Because then we can keep upgrading it. It could be a +1 at first. First, like at level 5, it could be overcome magical resistance. Then at level 10, it could be a +1. Then at level 15, it's a +2.
Sure. And I think we talked about that a little bit with one of the other subclasses we went over not too long ago.
So for me, that's what would feel better and more suitable to a progression. But you bring up a good point of what the expectation is for a 5e encounter, right? Like the progression of encounters in 5 and 5th edition. I think that's really what this is speaking to, in that sense of you're kind of expecting to have to be a heavy hitter sooner than later, which is something that I kind of disagree with the progression of how combat really works now. I like a much, not like something like a slow burn, but I like a much more, I don't like the world just always being just 3 steps harder than where you have to you're constantly like upset that you don't have a magical weapon. Like we've talked about this, scaling mundane weapons. It's just, I don't like the idea that this has to, like, not that this has to be here, but it feels kind of bad that this is what makes people feel like it's now balanced. To get, again, it's like you're level 3 and you're overcoming resistances. Like, that's the challenge, though. Like, the whole point at level 3 is to have the challenge of not being able to steamroll it. You're basically saying, well, I don't want the challenge. It's like, that's the point. You're level 3. But now you get rid of the challenge, and it's like, so now it's fair. It's like, but the challenge was to make it fair.
Yes.
So it's a very layered conversation.
I do get what you're saying, and I do agree with that. Like, I don't always want there to just be like a scapegoat to get out of it, but I will say a lot of the fun dies down if it feels like a forever journey.
And that's why I say something like, let me get this level 3. At level 5, let me get over resistance. At level 10, give me the +1. Make it actually magical, right? Like, that's what I really think that's missing. Like, we've talked about this so many times.
Yeah.
That's really what's missing with 5e subclasses, is a true progression system. They're all great subclasses. They're all specialties. They're all niche. But none of them truly have a progression system. Most of them don't play out. Like, we talked about this. We're excited when we see a callback to a previous ability, or ability, just get bumped up or something, or a synergistic tie-in, right? But we get excited because that isn't the standard. It isn't the norm. We're not going from one subclass to the other being like, yep, there it is. Oh, there's the callback. It's more like oh my God, they called back to it. And that's what I feel like it should be the other way around. I would, again, I always talked about like the first things that you get, like this is beautiful. We talked about the things that you get when you choose a subclass should be the cornerstone, or at least the foundation to give me, it's either the cornerstone, something that's going to build with me the whole time, or it's going to give me a very good viewpoint of what I'm going to get the rest of the way. And I think that this one's doing it, right? I'm getting control of this little sentient piece of metal. It's going to be with me. I can wear it, or I can have it follow me. And now I'm learning that I can do stuff with it, right? Like, all of this stuff I'm totally vibing with, and it's setting that stage. But it's also feeling just like, it's like that scene where I'm just like, oh, and then get this, and I'm almost like, okay, wait a second. How much more are you just going to keep piling on when I just started, right? I kind of feel like there's almost like an overload of what's happening here all at once.
Interesting.
And maybe this is also, I have a hard time sometimes articulating this, but because we look at it from a narrative point of view, a player point of view of like, what am I doing with it? What am I playing with it? How am I interacting with it? It also seems like giving it as overcoming resistance. We haven't even read the other 2 abilities yet, but it leads me to believe that that's going to be kind of its like shining glory. Like, that's pretty much what I'm always going to use it for.
See, my mind immediately goes to Well, if it's gonna get the ability to, it makes sense that it would start off that way, because if this thing is magic, if this is a magical creation, if the reason why this thing is intelligent now and is alive now is because of the magic that I've infused into it with my artificer-ness, right? Then it would make sense that, yeah, this is a magical device. Like, and so even if it's not doing extra damage, like it doesn't have a +1 or anything like that, it would make sense that when I hit something or with it, it would probably recognize it as magical. Like that's what makes sense to me.
And my only disagreement with that would be is like, then that negates the idea of like spell levels, right? Because this is your first introduction to this magic, right? You just infuse this thing to become alive.
No, but even cantrips do magical damage.
But that's what I'm saying. So, but this thing is like a magnitude different than just doing a spell. Like, this is a creation. I would think that the first iteration of it, like the first time you create it, it's gonna be just enough to be created, right? I would think that later on down the road, it'd have to be infused more with your power to be able to do those things.
This to me feels like a cantrip. This to me feels like something I can do over and over and over and over again. It feels like something.
I mean, it kind of acts like one, I guess, because yeah, it's if it gets destroyed, it's like, long rest kind of thing. But yeah, but it is like an innate thing. I just don't look at it as casting. I look at spell casting and things that have magic in them as two different things too.
That's true.
So, but this isn't a cantrip in the sense that it's just quick little bursts of magic. This is an ongoing thing, which is why I would expect it to have to be infused over time, which is why even from level 3 to level 5 would make sense, right? Give some time to get used to it, to learn what you've done with this new life form kind of thing.
See, my lightweight thought process on that was that's what level 1 to level 3 is doing. Because we've talked before about how you're not doing something for the first time when you hit your level up and it's a thing you can normally do. It's something that you've been practicing and training on for a while, and then once you finally level up into it, you are now comfortable enough to put it out into practice in the real world.
Which does make sense, because this is, I think we've mentioned this before, this is one of those weird things about just the oddity that subclasses start at level 3.
Right.
I don't think we've ever really come to a conclusion on where the source of subclasses starting at level 3, because again, really, what does that make sense is if you're saying that at level 3 is when you come in, because I would agree with you, it's something that you've been working on, except 9 times out of 10 the verbiage is that when you take on this thing, things happen, like not maybe necessarily this one, but a lot of the times the subclasses make it almost seem as if you've stumbled into this life suddenly.
Right.
And realistically, it shouldn't be that way. It should be as you've tried all of these years, you've finally understood. Like, it should indicate you've been working towards it, but a lot of the verbiage tends to be...
I'll say this.
It just is now.
Mechanically speaking, I think the reason why subclasses, for the most part, start at level 3 is to give players a chance to play with the actual base class in case they haven't before, and kind of get a feel of what they're going to be doing with it, because your first and second level features are kind of like the meat and potatoes of your overall class, right? You get your action surge for your fighter, you get your all your bonus action stuff when you're a rogue, it's all the big things that you're going to be able to do with your class in general. And maybe after playing with it for a few sessions, you thought you wanted to do arcane trickster, but now you're really excited to do assassin or something like that. Who knows?
I don't know if people are getting that much experience in the first 2 levels to...
No. I'll say honestly, that's true, because most people start at level 3. Most people just want to start with a subclass.
I think my theory, like my conspiracy theory of this, is that's exactly what it is. I think the standard became starting at level 3, and that's why subclasses start at level 3. Because I think most people looked at it and said, it's kind of useless, because either no one's going to play at level 1, or the gaming sessions aren't going to last long enough for any individual talent to be useful for 2 levels, right? Like I think it was just like once you get down to like level 3, like what's the point of having a level 1 ability for a subclass, right? And that's like where the background should be kind of tied in, and we've talked about that where classes are way more than that. But my theory is the reason subclasses start at level 3 is just because everybody builds level 3 characters.
Like
I have no basis for that, but literally that seems to just
to be clear, there are some exceptions. Clerics start at level 1. I'm pretty sure sorcerers start at level 1.
No, I was just talking about like home rules. Like I like in my gaming experience, I don't know how many people I've ever gamed with that have ever started a campaign at level 1.
Right.
Like
right.
I think it's just my theory is the reason why they start at level 3 is just because on a community basis, by the time 5th edition came out, I think it was just colloquially known to just, I don't want to start at level 1. Everyone just wanted to start at giving it a fighting chance, because everyone knows that no one wants to be there with, you know, a D4 or a D6 of health.
Because it's scary, man. It's scary down there.
Well, and again, because we've talked about, you know, again, just 5th edition and more of the recent editions have been much more combat focused. So when you are level 1 with a D4 or D6 of health, combat, even at a, you know, quarter CR is not favorable.
It can be deadly, man.
And
like one extra creature can turn a normal encounter to a deadly one.
And that's why, yeah, like some of the earlier editions, like it was tough, but I think that's where the early levels are definitely better to seed the role play before you get into like the true encounter challenges.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Mercurial. We still have 2 other abilities.
Yes.
Because the first one is being able to turn into a weapon. You're proficient with it, and it can overcome resistances and immunities to non-magical damage. So I didn't even catch that the first time. I can see your argument against resistances, but immunities? Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay, because I don't think I caught that the first time. I
did not either.
I think we were just discussing that you were okay with it bypassing resistances, non-magical resistances this early, but I definitely think that immunity needs to get pushed. Clerics are at second level. Warlocks and sorcerers are at first. Gotcha.
Yeah.
But that also makes sense because warlocks they actually start their pact at first level? Or
Yeah, because I mean, you have to have a pact with someone to be a warlock.
Right.
Like,
right,
what's a warlock without a pact
again,
master?
I think that's what we talked about before, where it's like they're the only ones that actually make sense because again, they start with what they are, where everybody else.
I would also say sorcerers make sense because where did their magic come from?
Like druids would make sense because you are kind of, you don't just go decide to live in the forest and become a druid. It's kind of.
But I would say that like
thing.
you can start connecting with nature without knowing where that connection wants to specify. Like I'm connecting with all of nature, and then now I'm drawn towards plants. I can
make the same argument for sorcerer. You can have the connection to your magic, but not know what it's going to manifest as.
Well, sure, but you can. It's less of like, okay, when you have like dragon ancestry, like your connection is dragon. Like that's where your source comes from. Like you couldn't like figure that out halfway through that, it was dragon. It was like, no, it was always
no,
gonna be
I know,
dragon.
but I'm just saying like how it manifests though. You know, you can still make the argument that you can still wait for the subclass to like manifest like how it comes. I'm just saying like because warlock and sorcerer go to first level, it's like they're the ones that are doing it right, because it's like all the other ones, like I think it makes more sense to just start the character where you started the character, right? I don't know why there's this buffer of 2 levels when even in the storyline it doesn't really make much sense that you're gonna go adventuring to then, you know, potentially change your mind. It's like, I don't know. It's always been a weird thing for me. I've never really understood the subclass breakdown, but that's because I also don't use subclasses in that particular way. Like for 2nd edition, there isn't really like the you select it and then you go. It's more of a, you just curate your character as you go.
As you build, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, definitely immunity should probably come at least around level 10, I would say. Like even if we accept magical resistance this early, I would say magical immunity maybe level 10 at least.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we're on the same page there, because I feel like the immunity might be a little bit much. And then when rolling damage with the Mercurial weapon, you may add your intelligence modifier in place of either strength or dexterity. I like that.
That's great. I really do think that's perfect.
Okay. So the next one is Mercurial Defense. Your Mercurial combines with the armor or clothing you're wearing, granting you a much more effective protection. You now add your intelligence modifier to your AC instead of your dexterity modifier.
Okay.
And your armor or clothing cannot be forcibly removed from your person.
I like that a lot. I like both of those features. They're very simple, and one helps you out a lot. Like, because especially if like imagine you're wearing a leather armor, whatever reason, you're just wearing some light armor, and you get your full dex bonus, right? I would imagine the same limitations would apply. Like if you're wearing medium armor, you would still get an intelligence bonus cap, right?
Oh yeah, would it be your full intelligence? Like, does it override and give you your full intelligence bonus, or does it give you your intelligence bonus equal to the?
That's
the cap
what I'm
of your
because
dexterity?
it says it replaces. It says you add your intelligence instead of dexterity or instead of dexterity.
So it doesn't say your maximum. So yeah, so you would probably have the same cap, but if your intelligence is higher. So this is definitely for an intelligence build, which Artificer would be.
Yes.
So it's definitely gearing towards that. Now, one thing I will make. Love playing devil's advocate here, right? Because I'm against the so sudden getting magical resistance overcoming. But let's just say this says that I could have it. This also says I can overcome immunity. So as a player, if I read that I can have resistance, I can overcome resistance and immunity as a weapon. My next question is, okay, that's cool. I'm totally down to replace my dex with my intelligence modifier for AC. But why am I not also being granted at least one resistance? Or why is, because again, if it can overcome it, why doesn't it also give it to me, right? I would think that if I turn it into my armor, I would have the choice of at least one resistance, or I get resistance to all damage types that are non-magical, or I get immunity to one, right? Because if it's I'm looking at the magical equivalents, and if my weapon can overcome it...
I kind of like it could give you resistance to non-magical attacks. I not necessarily at third level.
Yeah, but that's where I'm just thinking.
But
like, if it can overcome it,
like
why
that.
doesn't it give me some sort of extra benefit other than just my? So that's just one of my. Resistances do come later. Okay, so Des says resistances will come later. But that again, just playing devil's advocate. If I'm gonna look at the weapon doing that much, I would think that the defense would also have something magical about it.
Yeah.
So that was just my little side thing. But I do really like kind of what Des made comment of before is just the what was the actual comment that they made? It was like just the actual role play aspect of it. The because I said it wasn't extremely balanced. But the thematics, that's the word I was looking for. Like the thematics of this, I'm definitely vibing with, though. I'm really liking how the interaction is going with it. And then, we get the last one, Mercurial Ally. The Mercurial takes form of a vaguely humanoid creature standing approximately 3 to 4 feet in height, which makes sense because we're only dealing with about 20 pounds of metal. Only with vague facial features, depending on the metal you have built it with. The appearance will follow suit. In combat, the ally shares your initiative count, but it takes its own turn immediately after yours. I always like that. I like splitting it up and not... I'm always frustrated when my ally is also my own turn, so I have to use my actions to do it.
Yeah.
I much prefer this, right? 2 different actions, same initiative. I like that. It can move and use its reaction on its own. I love that. But the only action it takes on its turn is the dodge action, unless you take a bonus action on your turn to command it to take another action. Okay, so it's on there. It can move, but it's only going to be defensive unless you give it an action, unless you tell it to do something which is going to take one of your actions.
And I will say, as far as I know, artificers are low on stuff to do with their bonus action.
Yeah.
So giving them something to use it on a fairly regular basis to command, like, that's cool.
That's nice.
It makes me feel like I'm not just
burning
it.
Like I said before, even if it's going to burn a bonus action, it doesn't take your actions, so it's not just you on a different area of the battlefield.
Yeah.
That action can be one in its stat block or some other action. If you're incapacitated, the Mercurial Ally will take any action of its choice, not just dodge. Okay, so it'll make sense, right? It'll do whatever makes sense for it. If the minion spell is cast on it, it regains 2d6 hit points. The ally's hit points are unaffected by changing its form. It will return to maximum when you complete a long rest. If it has died within the last hour, you can use your Smith's tools or alchemy tools as an action to revive it, provided you were within 5 feet of it, and you expend a spell slot of first level or higher. The ally returns to life after 1 minute with all of its hit points restored. Okay, so if you are in the middle of a dungeon and you don't want to wait till your long rest, this is a nice little quick way of doing it. Optimizing the action economy is absolutely amazing in this, because that's what you kind of need to do for those artificers. So I don't dislike this because it did say that you can kind of take any form. So it's kind of like, I'm assuming that this is what the idea was, right? Like you can take some basic form to follow you, or it can take this form. So what I'm not seeing here though is attack stats. Oh, that's why, because I opened it up. I was like, where are the attack stats? Why am I not seeing the attack stats? I
looked at it and I was going to say something. I was like, hey, if you click on the link there, it'll take you to it.
So this is what you can turn it into. It has an armor class of 8 plus your proficiency plus intelligence modifier. Has 2 hit points. Which is not bad. Okay, so 2 hit points plus your intelligence modifier plus your artificer level times 3. Interesting. Okay, so that's a decent amount of hit points though. It'll survive like 2 hits. Speed of 20. Let's see. So from
because it's tiny.
So we have a strength of 10, dex of 14, con of 14, intelligence of 4, wisdom of 10, charisma of 6. Saving throws are dex and constitution. Skills acrobatics.
So those are 1 plus the proficiency bonus of the player.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Not of the creature.
Right, gotcha. That makes sense. So we have damage vulnerabilities of acid and lightning. That makes sense for metals. Mm-hmm. Damage resistances, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. So again, it itself is like that. I still think the attack. My devil's advocate is that if you're really gonna double down on that, the attacks.
The armor you get,
or the armor you should get should also, because if it itself has these resistances, and the weapon you turn it into goes through those resistances, why isn't the armor you're wearing have those resistances? It's almost just teasing you at that point.
I mean, lightweight. Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely. This makes me even double down that if this is going to be it, then these damage resistances also should come into the armor that you're wearing, or he shouldn't have the resistances, and his attacks should go through non-magical. You know what I mean? Like it should be more consistent. Right. Either you should get his armor, or he should get the attack. Because it's the same magic, it's the same metal, so it should be consistent, right?
That is fair. It is the same stuff.
So I would say that either it happens all 3 ways, or only the armor, only the weapon kind of thing. But that would be my approach. Where were we? Damage resistances. Okay, so condition immunities. It cannot be charmed, exhausted, or poisoned. It has a passive perception of 10 plus the proficiency bonus times 2 of the caster, and it understands spoken and written languages the caster knows, or the artificer knows. Oh, 100% agree. You'll probably fix it. Yeah, I mean, again, you said that this is one of your first builds. We're not trying to be too harsh. It's just more of that whole, like, how would you really want to approach that kind of thing? But I do like, I like how you thought through the damage vulnerability. So that's a nice touch. Let's see. So abilities. Amorphous. The Mercurial can move through a space as narrow as 1 inch wide without squeezing. Player brain is going off. Okay, hold on now. I love this. But does that mean that when it takes its normal forms, it's technically solid? That's what it would tell me, right? This is a liquid metal, but when it takes like the form of the ally, it goes solid.
Yes, I would say, like, again, very similar to the T1000. You know, it's solid. It can punch you, it can stab you, but it can also melt to the floor and slide under the door and then reform itself.
Player brain. So I'm just thinking, like, okay, there's a barred entryway. Have him get in between the bars and then turn into an ally and just bend the bars because you're a piece of metal and you're just, getting fatter. There's a cracked door that's stuck. Wedge into this crack and then become ally and shatter the door open. Like, this is just player mindset. I'm just thinking of, like, I could use this as a wedge. I could literally wedge things open with this.
I would ask, how powerful is the magic that can expand and crack these things? Because if you're shrinking your size to go underneath something, like, how powerful and strong does the magic outward force pushing on that have to be in order to...
If it can outdo magical resistance, I'm just saying.
Magical resistance, yes, but, like, even somebody with a magical sword isn't just gonna necessarily slice through a boulder with your magical sword.
No, not necessarily a boulder, but I'm just thinking things, if it can get into a crack and then expand and then become its shape, and it's metal and it's like a wooden door, I'm just saying, like, the metal should be able to pry it open. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to think of, like, okay, so, like, again, someone's like, a beam falls on somebody, you can get this guy to slip in underneath and then go full form and, basically become leverage to... I'm a player. I'm trying to think of all the, not necessarily abuse, but I'm thinking of all of the ways that I'm like, okay, if I can be told this thing can go into a crack, what can I do once it's inside? I have to know. Like, again, can this thing undo locks? I mean, it does say an inch wide, so technically, can I have it stick, my ally can have it stick its finger in a lock, melt through it, and...
But is it, like... I would say how well can it control?
It does have an intelligence of 4.
What shape it's turning it into. It does have an
intelligence of 4, and it does say basic shape, so it's not like it's going to get intricate. But I have to test these ideas. Let's see. So, good idea for inanimate objects. I'd make a strength check for expanding into space with the creature. I may rule similar to teleporting. Okay. I mean, yeah, I wasn't necessarily thinking... I mean, I wasn't even going to the direction of, like, hurting a creature, but that would be kind of hilarious. But, yeah, I'm just thinking, that's like, fair. When I think of, things you can't get in, I'm just thinking, like, okay, we can't get in it, but once he's through, it's not going to be helpful. But what if I put him in it and then break open the thing that we can't crawl through? You know what I mean? Because it's like you were talking about Find Familiar. I can't see through his eyes. So if we're in between something and all that's in between us is this crack and he gets through, what's that going to do for us? He's not intelligent. I can't see through him. The best I can hope for is we sneak him in a crack and then it's a door and then he can unlock the door. You know what I mean? Like, that's, I think, what the intent is like, oh, you can sneak through a crack and then unlock a door, unlock a gate. But what I'm thinking of is like, well, how do I just open up the crack more?
That's fair.
Oh, there was an ad. Yeah. Ads are dumb. I have them set to the shortest time possible, so they should only be 30 seconds for everybody. I'd love to see this creature fight a shadow servant. It'd be an epic fight.
That would be very interesting.
Oh, man. Okay. Quick tangent, we got to keep reading. But cool idea that we should do is Sidekick Showdown. We try to find everything in D&D. Find Familiar, Steed, Mounts, this thing.
The Rangers... They have a Beastmaster companion.
Yeah, the Beastmaster companion.
There's even one...
Shadow Servant. We'll take the Mercurial. Like, if we could find anything that you could consider a sidekick in D&D, right? We take them all and then we do like a showdown where we would actually try to either do a rating system or we'd actually try to like see in a fight who would actually win. And how it would actually unfold.
There was this guy, he was doing this thing where he took every monster from the monster manual in each CR and he put them up against each other. So he literally would like roll for them as if they were in combat against each other and he would just see who would win.
That's what I mean. Like imagine us doing that but with the sidekicks.
That would be very
like a tournament. So we like bracket them and then we just sit there and then we could do, you know what we do? We do a tournament, right? So we have the whole bracket set up and then when we do all the fights, instead of us doing all the rolls, we choose one, chat chooses the other, and then we do like a tournament style where we just do that. We just roll it out, but chat does one side, we do the other side.
Oh, that'd be dope. I wonder if we can get a bot to roll in chat.
Oh, and then we can use the bot to, because I want to get the bot to do high points, which is a currency.
Oh,
we can bet on the tournament.
I think I gotta. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
We should write this down. We should write some of that down. Okay, this is gonna be awesome, man. I am like, dude, this is why I'm so happy that we can start making ideas like this now.
Right.
Because that's gonna be so much fun. That's gonna be so much work, though. That might be a end of year project, but I like this idea. I'll have to start looking at sidekicks. All right. Okay, so the amorphous form, I dig it. I think it's perfect. I think it works. And I kind of already anticipated that's what it was. Like, I just imagine that that's what it's doing when it's not, like, on your person or taking the form of your ally. So, just having this kind of, like, blob of metal is kind of just what I was envisioning anyway. Although I would like to see it, I don't think it said it anywhere specifically, but kind of like what you said before, it should just have some sort of verbiage that says it, other than being able to take the form of your clothes, it should be able to take the form of most mundane items. You know what I mean? Like become a cast iron, pot.
Sure.
So something on your wagon that looks normal and then can just suddenly become your ally. Like, I would love to see just like can become most mundane items. Because then you can turn it into your own weapon, right? With that power. But it should just be able to, kind of like a mimic, when you're not controlling it and when it's in like, like when you're sleeping, it just takes the form of, an inanimate object that makes sense. So, I don't know. That would be kind of,
I like it.
Something a little bit nice, because then you can kind of like hide it and do something.
Right.
Oh, I wonder. I know it doesn't have, Des, I know this doesn't have big on intelligence, right?
It's not currently.
The shape, type of metal, and appearance of Mercurialist is in its dormant state are open to the player's interpretation, so you can make it look like anything you want. Okay, so it has a 4 intelligence, but it doesn't need to sleep, I'm assuming. And you can give it commands. Can you basically give this command to basically be an alarm system so the party doesn't have to pull watch? Like, can this be one of those situations where you could be like, hey, sit here and scream if anybody but us walks up? And then you just make it look like something mundane so anybody walking up would not know what the hell is screaming.
Make it look like a rock.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, because that's what so that's exactly what I would do. I'd be like, okay, you go look like a shovel right over there. Just lean up against there, look like a shovel or something, or the head of a pickaxe. And if anybody but this party walks up, scream as loud as you can. And then just everyone goes to sleep. And then just imagine someone goes into your thing and someone's screaming, everyone's waking up and they're just looking around, trying to be like, what is fucking screaming?
What is screaming? Oh, that's wild.
Oh, man. Make it into a saxophone, enemies try to approach, funky jazz.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, no. Okay, so here'd be a cool thing, right? So you turn it into a kettle. You fill it up with water. You put it on the fire. And then you have it seal itself. And then you tell it, if anybody but us comes through, open up to just enough to do a whistle. So you put it on the fire as you go to bed. The coals will still die down, but it's going to maintain all that heat all night. So the steam will have been in there pressurized. So all it has to do is go, and then it's just
be so loud when it first starts.
Because it could just contain itself, right? It could just make a container and just hold all that steam all night. And then the moment something happens, and then guess what? If nothing happens all night, you know what you have? You can use the steam to heat your water in the morning to get coffee.
If I was the DM, I would roll
it
people
would take
to be
fire.
deafened.
Would it take fire damage? I guess it would take fire damage. I guess it takes fire damage if it's metal.
Oh, probably.
Aw, I wouldn't. I was hoping that it wouldn't take fire damage because it's metal. So
No,
it just I guess it doesn't have technically fire resistance. But then again, Des, you did say that you didn't quite get to the stage of deciding if there would be like stages of metal materials. So maybe that would be if you could justify what material it is. Certain materials could handle fire.
If you actually had a cast iron one.
Well, and that would be cool. Like, let's say you had certain metals where it's like, hey, this metal's good against fire, but it becomes brittle when it's really cold. So you're out. So, this thing could not melt in fire, so it'll stay your ally in really hot conditions. But in cold conditions, your ally has like a -3 to AC or something because it's like brittle, right? And then you can have a different type of metal combination that's the exact opposite. Really strong in cold, but in heat, it just melts and becomes, like malleable. So it'd be kind of interesting to have like different ways to say, hey, you can choose a metal every time, but here are like the combinations you can do.
Okay, I'm here for that.
All right, so this ally has multi-attack. It can make 2 attacks using its melee weapons. It has piercing arm, slashing arm, and bludgeoning arm. I kind of like that. Again, it's going to change its arms. And each one has a 1d4 plus the bonus, plus the proficiency bonus for piercing, slashing, and bludgeoning damage. And it can grapple. It can make a grappling attack. Grapple creature uses its action to escape. It must succeed its strength. Okay, so basically it can also grapple. So I really like that. I like that it has multi-attack, and I like the piercing, slashing, bludgeoning arm. So I like that it basically decides. You get 2 attacks of any of these, any combination, or you can grapple.
Yeah,
I like that.
I do. It's super simple.
Yeah, that's pretty slick. And for an ally, that's all you really need. Like for something like this, it's only 3-4 feet. So
yeah,
that's really all you need for it. Okay, so that was the Mercurial ally. So yeah, so I like that you can turn this thing into a weapon, defense, or the ally. Yeah, no, that's working really well. I like that. Again, I think my only thing is it's weird that the weapon will overcome defenses. The ally has magical resistance, but your armor, turn it into armor, just gives you your intelligence bonus. It feels like there's a gap there. And it tells me that I don't know who would use it for defense, because the other two are the obvious choice, right? A whole ally that can overcome or an ally that has those resistances, or a weapon that can overcome those resistances, or my intelligence modifier. It's very hard for me to judge that I'm gonna just use this as armor. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the armor is more there for flavor, more there for contextualness, and not really there to be intended to be used. But kind of like you said, if it's the options there, you might as well make it enticing enough to use equally.
Yeah.
You've mentioned that before, where
definitely
you don't want an option that either is so obvious that there's no other reason to choose the other option, or you don't want an option that just doesn't make sense to have. Just for the sake of telling me I have options.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do really like, just again, the play on, you have this ball of liquid metal that's just changing shape to do what you want. It's a weapon, it's armor, or it's an ally. I like that.
Yeah, I do. And that was just our level 3.
And this is oh yes, and you have to choose that at the end of a long rest. So you basically don't get, so it's not like on the fly, right? Which I will say, I would love to see that as the full circle later down the road, like after level 10, being able to up that from once per long rest to maybe like once. So at the start, at the end, when you wake up from a long rest, it takes one of these forms, and then I'd love to see like somewhere after level 10 you can do it once during the day, like one more time,
like during a short rest or something like that,
or just at will. Just you get to do it once.
Okay.
Because like the idea of being able to take your weapon, have this weapon that goes through magical resistances, and then be like, oh, we need someone else on the battlefield, throw it down, and now your ally's there. Like right now it's kind of that whole, you can take one of these 3 forms at the end of a long rest, but I'd love later down the road to see it get to a point to where I can turn from one to the next in the middle of battle.
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of cool. Changing its function as an action. I misread this part. This was the creating the new one. I thought it was saying that at the end of a long rest you had to change its form. Okay, so it only takes an action to change the form, so you can't do it.
Okay.
Okay, I misread that part. Okay, so the Mercurial ally in combat. Okay, so it doesn't do a whole lot of damage in combat though. It only does the 1d4 plus the proficiency bonus.
Twice. if it hits both times.
Right, the multi-attack. So not super, like, I kind of like that. I kind of like that makes it feel appropriate for a level 3.
I will say it's kind of cool to have something that can like help you grapple something.
Yeah.
Right? So if you just like have somebody like holding them in place, like it doesn't really do anything other than stop them from running away, right? And do you get advantage when they're grappled? Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. No, but if you trip them while they're grappled, they can't stand up because your speed becomes 0 and you need half your movement to stand up.
Can you imagine like having a whip and round 1 you say I want to whip that person, like wrap it around the leg and just hold on to them and be like, okay, and then the next round you're like, okay, I'm gonna use my action to turn this into my ally, and then I'm gonna use my ally to grapple the guy he's already attached to. You know, it's like any martial weapon, so I can turn it into a whip and then I can just like snag people and then be like, ally, grapple.
Actually, that would be kind of dope.
That would be terrifying too.
Like I would probably allow that as a DM if you just like whip it around somebody and like hold that tension for a second, and then you're just like, hey,
because it's like the T1000 where it's like just like changes its form. And
yes.
Just, like gripping it.
Imagine if they multi-classed into fighter and they got action surge and they did it all in one round.
That's messed up, but that's dope. I like that.
That would be crazy. And then they use their
that.
bonus action to command it to do some attacks of its own while it's grappled. Kapow, kapow. I would
Dez
totally
has a good idea. Weapon, spear, throw, hit enemy. Next round, ally, grapple.
Yes.
I like that one too. That's the idea right there. Like being able to do that. Like, okay, I'm liking this a little bit more. You know. Things becoming kind of terrifying, actually.
Right? And even if you miss with the spear, it lands like just behind them.
And then it just
ally,
pops up and
let's go.
After.
Like, let's do it, dude. Heck yes.
Oh man, that's
perfect.
That's terrifying.
I mean, lightweight, yes. I would be quite scared.
Okay, anything we need to know before air level 5? Anything to note other than ASI? I think you get 1 ASI at level 4.
Yes, you get an ASI at level 4. And there's something else. Oh yeah, 5th level is Artificer Specialist feature. Yeah.
All right.
I guess that's the quickest I've seen another one come up.
So this will be the extra attack.
Okay.
So starting at 5th level, you can attack twice rather than once, whether you take the attack action on your turn. Whenever you take the attack action.
Interesting.
So it's not an extra action. It's just an extra attack.
So they basically just straight stole this from any fighting class. Because most fighting class.
So it's a fighting class artificer, basically.
Yeah, so like fighters get this, paladins get this, even rangers get this, just standard at level 5. That's a very standard level 5 feature.
And so far, I mean, it hasn't really given us any reason to believe otherwise. We know that there's getting, I mean, at this point, we've had Catapult, Hail of Thorns. Oh my god, Catapult. Well, no. So, Dez, your ally, your thing is always going to be at least 20 pounds, right? It says at least. How much can you... Is there a limit? It says at least. I would assume that the whole thing... 2 of the official 4 artificers... Oh, okay. There's actually 2 official artificer subclasses that get extra attack at 5th level.
Oh, are there?
Yeah. 2 of the 4 official ones.
Okay.
So half of them do.
All right, bet.
But yeah, I'm really curious about like the weight limits now. Like what was the intent, or what would you say is the ruling between how much metal is going into this thing, right? Like, because it says at least 20 pounds. That's a lot of metal. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like, you got to think that plate is 10 pounds, I think. 10 or 15. That's like between 10 and 15 pounds, just that plate.
Really?
That plate's heavy. It's because it's to hold the whole entire rig on such a small frame, so I can have like arms hanging out and stick down. But I'm just thinking, like, think about this rig. Without that plate, that entire rig's less than like maybe 2 pounds. So I'm trying to think of like, what is 20 pounds of metal? Think about what a sword is. A sword isn't 20 pounds. Swords aren't 20 pounds of metal. So that is the other thing that you got to think about is you're wielding this thing, but if it's a minimum of 20 pounds of metal, anything you turn it into, because it can't separate, is going to be a minimum of 20 pounds in weight. So I know it's magical, so maybe Des has an explanation for that, but now I'm starting, got to put in all those details, right?
Interesting.
Is how do you justify what it's made out of, right? Hey, what's going on, Cosmic? Hydrate. I'm actually out of water, so
Legitness.
the intent was that it must be 20 pounds. On a second try, I'd make the wording less confusing. Okay, posture check, and I need to go get more water to get this hydration check, so I will be right back.
All right, let's do it.
Posture check too.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Posture up.
My goodness. Hopefully you guys are doing all right out there. I'm really liking this so far. I very much like these fighting based artificer classes. It's like they're getting down and dirty. I know a lot of artificers have been portrayed as being very like supporty and like standoffish and like I'm gonna shoot at you guys from a distance or let my dog go in and attack or whatever the case, but I like these ones that are getting in there and like getting their hands dirty. So yeah, I'm here for it.
All right. Got more water?
I think that is.
All right.
That's what I want. Ugh.
Okay. Thank you so much. Nice to know you guys are watching out for us. But yeah. What's going on, Cosmic? And then Des says, but yeah, the Armor Artificer and the Battlesmith Artificer also get extra attacks. The Alchemist and the Artillerist get for specialization-esque abilities, which I think we've gone over those ones before.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So, so an extra attack at 5th level. I like that because this is really, it's not really leaning any direction. And again, oh yeah, I was going to say, so Catapult, no, so Catapult doesn't work because Catapult, I was imagining Catapult,
Unless you do it at higher levels.
Unless you, oh yeah, but I mean, it's only, what,
It's 5 pounds per level, so that's what, 3rd level you need it? 5 pounds at first,
no,
10
4.
pounds at 2nd, 15 pounds at 3rd.
Yeah, so 20 pounds, so you'd have to
4th.
do it at a 4th level. So you'd have to upcast at 3 spell levels just to throw your ally. But once you do, you can catapult your ally, and if your ally is a giant spear, helps.
So
Or it doesn't,
that
again,
means
it doesn't
if
mean
you turn this into a weapon, you're wielding a 20-pound weapon.
That's what I was at. That's what I'm starting to ponder now, is because then, like, it says you're proficient in it, but I'm like,
Maybe I will give it this, especially if we're going down the mental road that it's intelligent. Like I would say, like this weapon can help you wield it, and where it's you would think like giving it to a normal average Joe, they're just gonna be trying to heft up a 20-pound weapon and it's not going to do them any good. But like you can wield it around like it's nothing because it's doing what you want it to do. It's like
it's
moving
magical,
where you want
like
it to go.
It has like a magical essence
so
to it.
If that's the mentality, like I can go down that road.
Oh, Catapult specifies object, not creature, and this is technically a sentient magic creature.
Interesting. Okay, there we go. Fair enough.
No, but you're right. Like, there's definitely ways to make sense of why you could wield it, but there is a pause for that logic of, wait a second, that is 20 pounds of metal that's becoming my armor, I mean, you obviously, it doesn't slow you down for being your armor, so it's obviously the magic helps weigh it, but it is interesting to think that that is a 20-pound weapon. So even though it may not be 20 pounds for you, if I throw that spear, is that a 20-pound spear being hurled at my enemy?
That's what I'm saying. Like when you imagine a 20-pound spear hitting you as fast as somebody could throw a normal spear.
That's what I'm thinking. Like that's
bruh.
You try to break catapult and fast, haven't we all? So yeah, that'll have to just be, I think, on the DM. I think that's more of a DM breakdown
For sure.
of how you want the magic to work. Yeah, we'll just have to leave it up to the DMs on that one. Okay, so 5 to 9.
All right, 5 to 9. At 6th level, you get Tool Expertise. Tool Expertise, your proficiency bonus is now doubled with any ability check you make using your proficiency with a tool.
Oh,
so
nice.
That might even be a lockpick check if you're using your thieves tools.
Yeah.
Like you would get to double your that's crazy. You get expertise in a lot of stuff. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And Des is saying that on a remake, they would make the weapon weigh 20 pounds for anyone else attempting to wield it.
I like that. Yeah. Very, very Thor-like. And then at 7th level, you get something called Flash of Genius. You've gained the ability to come up with solutions under pressure when you or another creature you can see within 30 feet makes an ability check or saving throw. You can use your reaction to add your intelligence modifier to the roll. Ooh. So I can just use my intelligence to like upgrade somebody's. It's almost like an after the fact what's the thing, guidance.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's like an after the fact guidance, like a reactionary guidance.
Gotcha. Okay. And that was at 8th level?
That was at 7th level.
7th.
8th level is an ability score improvement, and then 9th level is your artificer specialist,
which is the Mercurial focus. So at 9th level, your command over your Mercurial has grown, as has your understanding of it. You may now change its form and function with bonus actions instead of an action. I like that.
Okay.
That feels good for 9th. That totally feels good for 9th. Additionally, and it dude,
that means you could possibly have it in 2 different forms on the same turn.
But it also conflicts with the previous ability that was based off of a bonus action. So action economy now becomes...
Yeah, you won't be able to do those in the same turn, but...
So, because that one was the... what were we looking at before for bonus action? Commanding the ally.
Commanding the ally, yeah.
So commanding the ally and then...
So if
changing it, you won't be able to do... Okay, so I guess that... Yeah,
so if you turn it into the ally...
You just won't be able to immediately command it.
Exactly.
So no big deal on that one.
But I do like that bonus action.
Deemed a campaign with the Artificer in the party before. Flash of Genius is very powerful. Oh, yeah.
Is it really? Interesting. I've actually never seen that in practice before.
Well, because that's the post guidance, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, think about that though. It's like at any point you're just like, no, we're gonna pass that, right?
But
you get to choose.
How often do you get to use it? It's not forever, is it?
No, but that's the idea. Is if the role you were gonna do because it's like post guidance. So
you know how valuable it is.
You know whether or not to use it. Like guidance. If I use guidance on you and you roll 8 below the target, my guidance ain't gonna do shit for you.
Yeah.
But if they rolled 6 below, they rolled 5 below, they rolled 5 below, you rolled 2 below, I'm using my ability on you. Because I know for a fact all of you were failures, you're the only one gonna benefit from it. So it's so clutch. Because unlike guidance where I have to randomly choose one of you, I know which one of you it's actually gonna work on. So that's
very fair.
That whole knowledge of everybody, and think about that too. If sometimes you get those puzzles where everyone gets a roll, or there's a party roll and one person fails. If they're right on the cusp here, you can be the savior, but you don't waste it. You never waste it. That's why I believe the Flash of Genius is so powerful, because it's one of those few abilities that never actually gets wasted. There's no chance that you'll accidentally use it on someone who can't benefit from it.
I mean, I'm glad it's later. I'm glad it's like close to
Oh, and it's times per day is equal to your intelligence mod. So with the proper build, it's up to 5 times a day.
especially at this point. Yeah.
And yeah, knowing what it's gonna like, that's, I think, again, for me, I think that's why it's so clutch. Is yes, the multiple times a day, but unlike Bardic Inspiration, unlike Guidance,
And it's
you're
you
taking
and anybody within 30 feet of you. Just like, don't stray too far away, guys. Like,
exactly, right? All right, so let's see what our Mercurial ally can do now. So additionally, your Mercurial forms are upgraded in the following ways. So not
Okay.
only can we change it as a bonus action, but our Mercurial weapon now has changed. Your Mercurial weapon may now take the form of ranged weapons as well as melee weapons.
Okay.
So now we can actually start throwing them. Because before they were only melee weapons, so technically you couldn't throw them.
Well, if you turned it into a dagger that's a melee weapon, I think you can still throw that.
But I think, technically, mechanically speaking, a ranged dagger is different. Like, on like, you know, like simple martial, I think ranged weapons categorize it differently.
I mean, I would say that it's a melee weapon with the thrown property, not a ranged weapon. And I think that's how they categorize it
That
as
might
well.
be, yeah, so maybe they're maybe talking more like bows are considered ranged. It's always so weird the way they change up the verbiage for those ones. Because I understand that thrown, but to me it's like,
I think they mean projectile weapons more like crossbows or blow darts or
gotcha, things that actually have like
well,
ammo.
I would also say stuff like shuriken or
Yeah.
throwing daggers would be more considered ammunition than anything.
But this says the Mercurial weapon still requires the corresponding ammunition. So this one's talking. So this one is specifically saying it will become a missile ranged weapon. So it'll become a bow, a crossbow. You still need the ammo to put into it.
Got
but
it.
it can become the
vessel.
a 20-pound blowgun. Right? Well, that's what I was thinking too.
How do
It's
you
like you
even-
just turn it into like the most innocuous thing. Like you just turn it into a dagger and then you drop it, and then someone, like, that's the Thor moment where someone tries to go and pick up a 20-pound dagger. They'll pick it up, but they'll be like,
You're like, what the
is
heck?
this?
You're
Like,
yeah, let me...
oh man, can you imagine that? You're just like, because I mean it's only 20 pounds, but imagine it's like you had a party full of these guys, and you like got the BBEG and you knocked him prone, and then everyone just walks up and they all just take their weapon, and then they just drop it on each of one of his limbs. So it's just like, ding, ding, like 20 pounds straight on your wrist.
And I mean, depending on the form you take it, you just make it into a little.
That's what I was thinking. Is like you just turn it into like a just like a couple like hatchets, just so there's a little crux, and then it just lands, and then it's 20 pounds of just on every limb. Like, oh well, he ain't moving.
Well,
Oh, that would be that's dangerous. Now I'm just thinking of every weapon that would be ridiculous at 20 pounds.
all of them.
Okay, so this becomes like bows, crossbows, things like that. You need the corresponding ammunition, but it will shoot it now, which I do like. When it takes this form, you may choose to alter the damage it deals. You may now replace the weapon's bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage with acid, poison, or necrotic when the weapon takes form. You may use this feature a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier, minimum of 1, before taking a long rest. So you can replace. So whatever you turn it into, whatever damage type it has, bludgeoning, piercing, or damage, or bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing, you can turn it into acid, poison, or necrotic instead. So if I get a dagger, I can do poison damage instead. If I have a bow, well, I'm assuming that the bow would that. Des, do you intend that the bow, like if I turn it into a bow, would it impart acid damage onto the arrow? Is that the intent, or is it only? You can replace. Well, I guess it's bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, so you can only replace melee damage. I'm assuming. Maybe that's the thing. Oh no. Okay, so the bows will impart the damage. Okay, so bows will impart the damage. So if you have an arrow, those are going to be piercing, but you can impart one of these damages instead.
Okay.
Of the piercing of the arrow.
Interesting.
Okay. For 9th level, not terrible.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it so much. I think it's cool that you can add additional damage types, especially ones that we don't.
It's not even additional though. It's replacement.
Oh, that's what I mean. But like additional options for damage types, right? So instead of just bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, which the your little buddy had initially, now you have like acid damage that you could add to your own personal weapon.
So Des added that to kind of incorporate the idea of mercury poisoning.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
Okay. No, that makes sense why you can, like, you're basically coating it as you, like, fire the arrow. It kind of, like, gets a little bit coated, like, as it brushes up against it, right? Okay. So, yeah, so basically, you're giving them acid, poison, or necrotic damage. I like that. Man, I almost wanted to also give the poison condition, just because of the mercury poison concept.
I mean, that would be...
if you choose the alternative to replace it, I also kind of wanted to... Because, again, I just now imagine that it's, like, leeching into the wound or leeching into the weapon, like... Because the poison condition really is, we've talked about this before, it's almost a useless one. Like, it doesn't do a whole lot.
I mean, it does. I mean, it gives them disadvantage for as long as they're poisoned, like...
But only on certain things, right?
On their attack rolls and saving throws, right?
I thought it was only saving throws.
It's at least attack rolls. Hold on, let me check.
Because if that's the case, then yeah, definitely maybe give it the poison condition, because that would be kind of funny.
Poisoned. You have disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks, not saving throws.
I thought it was a saving throws and ability checks. That's why I said it was always kind of like meh. But no, attack rolls, maybe that's why, because attack rolls, it feels always meh if you get poisoned outside of combat, right? Like if it's just part of lore, it's like no one cares. Combat makes sense. Okay. Okay, so that's what you can do with the Mercurial weapon. Your Mercurial defense. On taking the Mercurial defense function, you may choose a damage type to gain resistance to from the following: acid, bludgeoning, cold, fire, piercing, slashing, and thunder. This resistance lasts as long as you're wearing the Mercurial defense, or until the end of a long rest, at which point you may choose a different damage type. So, okay, so two things here. So one of the things that I would make the mention of is I'd like to see a little bit more, like, well, I guess the consistency is here, but, like, the thunder made sense because I think you mentioned that previously.
Thunder.
Oh, is it here? Lightning damage. So, damage. Well, your ally is vulnerable to lightning damage, right? So you have this. Where's my mind going with this? So as your defense, you now have a resistance against thunder, right? So there's like, I'd like
thunder. That's like auditory.
Yeah. So it's like I'd like to see more of like a consistency with some of the abilities, but like it can do acid damage, which makes sense, but giving you acid resistance, I'm not sure is like the right logic I would go with. And as we talked about before, only now getting the resistances almost makes it to where it's like I wouldn't have used this until now. So I would have liked to have seen, like we talked about before, the first Mercurial defense, just like the ally has. You have resistance to like bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, and then this upgrade should say you can get an immunity to one of those when you take it on.
Interesting.
And maybe you can get an additional resistance to, say, I don't know about fire, because again, it's metal. I would think something like, cold maybe, or I don't know. I wouldn't mind an extra resistance, but I would like to see at this point getting a chosen immunity. That's all you get, though. You get that immunity, or you get the broad resistances. I think that would have been a better level up.
Interesting.
And I think, like, if you're going to add something additional, this seems a lot to add, and it doesn't seem like it really meshes well with the rest of it. So, like, just more of that synergy, more of that consistency from each of the abilities.
Yeah, no, I get that. I do like the idea of having, like, resistance to the non-magical earlier and then upgrading it to be just magical in general. I like the idea of getting an immunity.
Like you can use your action or bonus action to just change it from resistances to a single immunity type, which I think would be kind of cool. Because then again, that could be clutch in certain battles.
Yeah.
And then you can just use that bonus action to alter. So again, if you're suddenly changing damage type, you can just flip the switch and get immunity to a different damage type, right?
Right. I think being able to flip it, that should come later maybe, because that's kind of just being able to just like turn it on and off and like.
But it's only as a bonus action, so it only ever be on your turn.
Right.
So it's like it's only ever.
It's not like in reaction to something like that.
So it's like, yeah, you'd get stabbed and you're like, oh, time to go to
Unless
piercing.
they are artificers, and I'm pretty confident artificers have a spell called Absorb Elements, which as a reaction you can just absorb. You still take the damage, but you absorb it, and you can. Let me actually look it up.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely, yeah, cool. I love the idea of being able to have a weapon and a defense or an ally. I love that breakup. I'd like to see the defense have a bigger draw, because right now it just feels like it's, like I would have put this on the back burner as a player, right? I can't imagine that intelligence bonus would have really up until level 9.
I agree. It says you have resistance to the triggering damage type until the start of your next turn. Also, the first time you hit with a melee attack on your next turn, the target takes an extra 1d6 of the triggering damage type. So you like store up a little bit of that damage.
Gotcha.
Like I would totally, that's totally an artificer spell.
Okay. And then the allies update. The Mercurial ally has been strengthened over time, and you have honed its attacks as well as its maneuverability. The melee attacks of the ally now deal 1d6 plus your proficiency bonus. So that's a nice change after level 9. I think that's fine.
Definitely.
The ally can now form with a flight speed of 20, but must end its turn landed or fall.
I like that. So it can kind of fly. It can make like significant.
It's more like a glide. It can like because it says a fly speed of 20, so it can go up. Okay, so basically it can get over people, so more like a large jump and glide, but still good. It has to, and so it can't fly with you. It's not like going to continuously fly. Yeah. But definitely more like a glider because it's made out of metal. I don't mind that. I think I don't know, flight speed of 20 feet.
I just basically say that means it can like jump 20 feet, lightweight.
And that's what I'm thinking. Like, is that enough? Like, I mean. You know, or what I would say is like it could maybe what about that is like it can have a jump of 20 feet, or if thrown by you can have a flight distance of like I would say like 60 feet. Like, so imagine like you hold it, like, you know, I'm thinking like a drone or something, or, you know, like the old school glider drones, right?
Yeah.
You would hold it, you'd be able to just toss it, and then it gets to go up to 60 feet.
That would be really cool.
Way better than it just gets to go 20 feet on its own. Like, I like the idea of it being able to jump, right? Like, it itself can travel a good distance.
And I like the idea that it's like, it's not like it's hovering in the air or anything like that.
Yeah, but the idea that if you threw it and then it could go like 60 feet in flight, that would be kind of cool. And if you were able to control it, imagine being able to be able to toss it, go 30 feet, turn around, have it drop something, come back to you, and actually land next to you. So things like that, right? Like giving it the option to truly fly, but it can't go further than 60 feet. But if it could take commands, it could do a circle and then land back at you. It doesn't have to necessarily be a one-way trip.
I like that.
Could, you know, it being able to let it carry things, drop things on the way. Like, imagine being able to throw it to an ally, or throw it, you know, like, hey, be a bird. In this, like, in your left claw, hold this health potion, and in this claw, hold, you know, like a bomb. Now, I'm gonna throw you to my ally. Your instructions are drop bomb over him, let go when you land. Very basic instructions. So I throw him up, he drops the bomb on the enemy, he lands and lets go of a health potion right next to you. That would be kind of cool, up to like 60 feet away. Because again, it's not really flight, that's just a good glide.
Right.
But I think the bonus, or not the bonus, but the detriment of having it to be you propelled, so you have to be the throwing, like it can't just hop up and do that, but you like throw it. I think that would be the clutch moment, because everybody else would, you know, pick it up and be 20 pounds. They wouldn't be able to fucking toss that thing. But you just pick it up like an airplane, paper airplane.
You're like, all right, let's go. I do like that idea.
Let's see, reaction when you take acid, kind of cold damage, or okay. And then Des says, just thought of something really interesting. Don't know how to implement it mechanically. What if you make the Mercurialist out of magnets? Interesting. Made it
kinetic sand.
Kinetic sand. Well, because it has to be a metal, Now, the thing is, like a ferromagnetic metal, like a ferrofluid. Like, if you can make a ferrofluid, which is basically a fluid super condensed with miniature particles, right? So it's usually like iron shavings in some sort of a solution. And so it's a liquid, but it's full of iron shavings. So when around magnets, it's a liquid that's very, very magnetic, right? So it would basically be that. You would make this thing a ferrofluid, which would be itself extremely magnetic. I don't know exactly what you would be able to do with it, but obviously, like, being magnetic, you'd have interesting properties of being able to do stuff like that.
I could think of some very potentially powerful things. I mean, just I think of like a scaled down version of Magneto, lightweight. It's like, all right, what types of things could be affected in this way? How can we go down different roads? Like, imagine if you just surround yourself around somebody's blade and like you have this like you can create like a little magnetic field around somebody's sword to potentially just shatter it. With the
like with your higher level powers.
Yeah, at a certain point of control.
Well, and you could do other things too. Like you could, again, depending on how you wanted to put it in lore, but you could say that you could get bonuses to AC by covering your armor in this ferrofluid. So when people like go to strike you, there's a pulse. There's like a negative. So it's like they go to hit your armor, and just like a magnet, it like wants to push the metal away. So you get a bonus to your AC with anybody wielding metal weapons. So if it's a club, no bonus.
Nothing. Yeah.
But if it's a metal weapon, wow, it's like they have to push through, like, pushing two magnets together. They have to push through.
How would you feel about metal tipped arrows?
Slightly less because they're going faster. So if it's normally you get a +2 to your AC, maybe those only get a +1. Still slightly deflective, but if it's dead on, it's dead on, right?
Okay.
So it won't be as beneficial,
That's
but
fair.
It still should help deflect.
Okay.
You could do things like use it to like be able to attach to people. Like you can go attach to the BBEG, so make him move slower because now it's like magnetizing all of his. If he's wearing metal armor, he can't move as much. Make it to where he can't. He gets a negative to swing because he can't move his gauntlet because it's like magnetized shut or something. Make someone who can't move. If they have metal gauntlets, you can just like stick them to the floor somehow.
I like that, especially at higher levels.
Oh, as a nice one, as like a really cool concept for like in-game visuals. You don't have holsters. All your weapons seem to just be like kind of like in video games seem to be just be affixed to you almost magnetically. Because it's just like little ferromagnetic fluid, it's like little holding them, but to everybody else, they're just floating there, and then you just grab it and just go, kind of like how the kitchen knives are on the block.
Oh yeah,
like the magnetic block that they're just that's just what it looks like on you. You just go tink. You just anywhere you want to put it, you just like put a dagger on your shoulder and it just sits there. Because it would be like basically be like magnetic nanoparticles that you could basically like do.
Yeah.
So that would be really interesting. If a rogue had it, what you could do is you could have the rogue, like have it take the form of like a belt or something. So if he sells something or like whatever, someone like takes the cash away and then the belt like comes off and then just takes the bag back. Like just like different things that you could do to like have it take different forms and do different things with it.
That's interesting.
It's almost like having a non-violent commandable mimic. Like now I'm thinking, oh my God, you want to talk about being a player. So I'm a player. I have this thing. I'm going to scope out a bank, slightly for a while. I'm going to figure out where and how they put things. And then I'm going to get my little buddy in here and I'm going to have them take the form of wherever they like to just like throw the cash, whether it's like a little vault or a drop box, right? Where cash goes. I'm going to have my buddy take the form of that thing and just chill out, accepting payments for a while until I'm like, okay, that's good. Let's go. And then he's just going to walk out of there with a belly full of money.
That would actually work way too well.
Like, you just got to think of you just got to scope something out wherever people throw money into, whether it's a safe deposit box or something, and then you have your buddy just look like that, and then once it's just deposited, you're out.
Like, let's
done.
go. Let's go.
Oh man, break! You know how like safety deposit boxes are like little vault, like the little sliding things in the walls. You break into one, you find out which one you want before they input something in there. You break it open, you shove your buddy in there. He takes the form of it, and then you leave. Then you just wait until they go drop off their item, and then you have him just leave.
You'd be like, all right, get out.
All right, cool. Oh man, so many good ideas. Were we trying to balance out the damage? For me, I was mainly just trying to balance out the types of resistances it could actually do. I think the damage output's fine, but the resistances that it gives, I think, just need to be more consistent with what we've seen before. I think it was what I was commenting on before. Yeah, we'll have to do a magnet like subclass for this. We'll have to think more.
Right.
And build one. The anti-druid, you only must wear metal armor.
Huh.
Oh man, no, because at that point, like you don't even look like you're wearing armor. You're just wearing pieces. Like you just.
And it's like a little force field.
Yeah, it's like when you take this like broken breastplate and you just go clink, and then you just take another piece of a broken breastplate and clink. Like there's nothing connecting them. There's no straps. You're just literally have perfectly bits and pieces of metal. And then if you look closer, they're not actually pieces of real armor. Like one's like a half of a plate, one's like a cup that was like cut off and like put it, like you're just using like bits and pieces of melded armor
put together.
But it works. I like this idea. Okay, yeah, so the ally. I think the damage increase is good. Honestly, I think the flight just needs to go further.
I think the damage could
might
go a
make
little
it
higher
yeah.
at this level.
Yeah, more than
I mean, like D10 wouldn't even be bad, right?
Okay.
It's not as big as it can go, but I don't think there's gonna be. I mean, there might be room, maybe a D8 if you want to go up to a D12 eventually, but
that's true.
If you're not gonna bump them up much more,
I guess a D8 would make sense. Double it at this point,
right?
You got it at third. You're at level 9. Double it. Yeah, I like the flight speed of 20 on its own. I just think that we could just add in flight speed increases to 60 if thrown by the artificer.
Yeah,
that would just be right there. Would I think really make the fly actually feel like fly?
Right.
The 20 feet, I think you're right. I think having it like its own little like kind of hover makes sense, but I think if thrown by the artificer increases to 60, kind of like a drone drop. I think that would be dope.
Yeah.
And that would have like we said, like being able to it's 60 feet, so that means it can circle back like after 30 feet, being able to drop something on the battlefield or just take a look at something. Especially
because they did say it's like a flying speed, and so it's likely going to have like some sort of gliding or whatever, and all it would need really is just that extra momentum. So no, that makes a lot of sense.
All right, so that would just be my thing there. Okay, so what do we have until level 15?
Until level 15, we are starting off at 10th level with Magic Item Adept. It says you've achieved a profound understanding of how to use and make magic items. You can tune to up to 4 magic items at once. You get an extra attunement slot. If you craft a magic item with a rarity of common or uncommon, it takes you a quarter of the normal time.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
And it costs you half as much the usual gold. That's pretty dope.
Okay.
And then at 11th level, you get spell storing item. You can now store spells in an object whenever you finish a long rest. This one's I've always wanted to get to this point where you can do this, but whenever you finish a long rest, you can touch one simple or martial weapon or one item that you can use as a spell casting focus. So anything that would normally be able to use like a wand, or even if it's like a mundane wand, like you could touch something like that.
Right.
Maybe even a book or tome. Anyways, and you can store a spell in it, choosing a first or second level spell from the Artificer's spell list. Because I think Artificers are technically only half casters.
Gotcha. And technically, the ally, the Mercurial, is a spellcasting focus.
That is true.
So technically, this thing could hold a spell for you. So your ally could then also have like a little spell that he could run around with.
Actually, that's kind of fair. That's kind of very fair.
Okay.
It requires, and it does say you could do it to a simple or martial weapon, so you could definitely do it when it's in its weapon form.
So yeah, it's totally on the table.
Requires one action to cast. You needn't have it prepared. Interesting. While holding the object, you can use an action to produce the spell's effect. Yeah. Level 12, you get an ability score improvement, and nothing at level 13, because at level 14, you get Magic Item Savant. Your skill with magic item deepens. You can attune to 5 magic items, and you ignore all class, race, spell, and level requirements when attuning to magic items.
That's actually, for certain settings, that's really clutch.
That's crazy. You ignore all prerequisites for attuning to... Now, it says class, race, spell, and level, but it does not say alignment.
Ooh, good
because
insight.
because I was thinking, would this really mess with like divine requirements? Like,
well, are there ever really, like in 5th edition, I don't think there are things that require like you need to be a cleric of, a follower of. It's you need to be a paladin or a cleric, like you need to be a certain class.
Standard items, yes, I'm agree with that. But like, I mean, if it's not like a...
I would say that if it was a deity specific item, then he doesn't get to overdo that. But I think it's the idea that because artificers see the flow of magic, they just understand how it works regardless of who's supposed to understand.
Interesting. So like, isn't like there's like belts of strength or something like that like only dwarves are supposed to...
Read that again. Read off the list.
You can attune to 5 magic items, and you ignore all class, race, spell, and level requirements.
So unless there's something that requires a certain stat block. Like a certain intelligence, wisdom, strength.
That fair.
Would be the only thing now that this doesn't override, is if the item that you're trying to attune to requires a stat.
Okay.
You'll have to have that stat. I don't know. I don't have any examples off the top of my head.
I think there are some ones that I've seen that have intelligence ones. I'm pretty sure there's ones that have strength ones.
So that's the only thing that this won't overcome.
I can't imagine much more than that. But
this says that there's a Warforged exclusive item that will basically make you Wolverine. It's called Wristblade, which I can already imagine why.
Yup.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, anything else till 15?
Nope, that's 14th level. That's the last one.
So before we get this work, because it looks like we're going to get more Mercurial stuff. So another thing that I've already noticed that I think I was expecting to see in level 9, so I'm now really hoping to see in level 15, but I feel like it's going to be too late, is you mentioned this before, how other classes with their familiars can see through them. I was kind of expecting to get there by level 9.
Gotcha.
I wonder if it's going to come next in level 15, but if it does, that might be too late.
I feel that.
I feel like maybe level 9 should have had even just as an action, like during the flight, like somehow just add in to where you can look through them even just temporarily for a short period of time or something.
I like the idea of doing it through a flight, but I also like the idea of just being able to do it within a certain range of view.
I think that would have made this. Oh, if the flight was 60 but you can only do it within 30, it would make sense to do an aerial view, but if it goes too far you'll lose view, right?
Interesting.
But yeah, so we'll see what that happens. So we have Mercurial Mastery level 15. We have some asterisks, so I don't know what that's going to mean. At level 15, your command
remember
over
what
your
that means
Mercurial
either.
has become second nature and now feels like an extension of yourself. Your Mercurial's forms have improved further in the following ways. Mercurial weapon, you gain a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with Mercurial weapon. See, so like I was saying, like by now if you had made the weapon, then now it could override the resistance. We could have had a +1 earlier, and this could have been +2 by now. I think it justifiably could have been a +2 by now, just because of how much we've been using it.
Right.
But I do appreciate that we're at least finally getting the +1 to magic. You may now replace the damage type of the weapon with acid, force, poison, psychic, or necrotic damage when weapon takes form. You may use this feature a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier before taking a long rest.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like I think Des is already on board with this too. I think just the damage types I think would be like what I would like to see at this point, Des, is clean up the damage types, right? Make them more consistent. But what we could have done is before, it had damage types and it could overcome resistances. Back at like level 9, when we got the last update, it should have been you can replace the damage upon creating the weapon with one of these other damages, right? It's a forward placement. So now at level 15, what this should have been is you get a +1 for the magical, and then upon creation of the weapon, you get to choose an additional damage type. So whereas in level 9, it would have been, hey, I made a sword. It has slashing damage. Oh, but at level 9, I can make a sword that has acid damage only. Now at level 15, I can make a sword that does slashing and acid damage.
I like that. Yeah.
Because then I have all of these other damage types that I've always... So it's either I can make a sword, now I can make a sword and then choose a different type of damage, and now I can do a sword and add a different type of damage.
So, real quick, before I forget, because I do not want... I hate inserting things, but it just fit in the scenario. The asterisks are because Des never actually named this section. So, Mercurial Mastery, I made that up.
Oh, gotcha.
I made that up just because I thought that it would fit
so we had
the naming
Mercurial
structure.
Focus, so Mastery was just your addition.
That was just my thought on what this should lightweight be based upon what I thought. So
I guess Des said that in chat.
yeah,
gotcha. Okay, so I would just think that would have made more sense for the progression of damage. Is you first make a weapon, then you can swap the damage. Now you can add the damage, because that would be cool to basically make custom weapons at this point, right? You could say today I'm gonna run around with a pole arm, but so that's gonna have piercing damage, but I'm gonna add necrotic damage on top of that, right? It's a pick and choose every time you change the weapon, and you get all of these way more cool combinations based on who you're attacking. Mm-hmm. So imagine just like attacking something, then switching weapon with your action, and then now it's a totally different damage type. Like,
yeah,
that sounds fucking dope.
I do kind of like that.
Yeah, so that would have been kind of cool to see that progression. So that might have been the way that I would have gone. Is just kind of do that regardless of the +1, right? I just think like.
No, I like that. I like that mindset, and I like the idea of either limiting how many times you can adjust it by. I'm assuming that's what the intelligence modifier is saying. It's like you can change its damage types this many times a day, or this many times before taking a long rest. So you have like 4 different switches, so you can switch back and forth between the same 2 types if you want to, like if that's helpful to you or whatever the case may be. But like if you, like you're talking about at this point in time, you want to like build a couple of basically like standard combos that you use. It's like you found slashing and necrotic damage to be really valuable in against one certain enemy, but then you have like bludgeoning and force damage for another one, and that one just really works for that one. So yeah. I don't know, I definitely like that idea.
Yeah. Okay. So Mercurial Defense. So when taking the Mercurial Defense form, you may now choose an additional damage type to gain resistance from the following damage types: acid, bludgeoning, cold, necrotic, radiant. Okay, so yeah, so same thing with like the Mercurial Defense. First we got it, and again, because of how it kind of started out, it probably should have started out with some of those same resistances, similar to what the metal itself has. And then again, I think level 9 would have been having a cool option to where you can choose those resistances and then maybe have some others, or turn those resistances into like a single immunity.
Yeah.
And then I like the idea of then at this point you could say, while you have a single immunity from a certain type, you also have these resistances to magical damages of these types, right? Like, so yeah, I like the idea of the defense. My only critique really of the defense is that it started out kind of weak.
Right.
Like, it just started out to where I would never have used it as a player until level 9.
Yeah.
It didn't
Especially until
really
you could have
necessary.
switched it as a bonus action, so I can at least attack with my weapon and then bonus action, boom, I got my armor for the rest of until the next whenever.
Yeah, so that would have been my only major critique of that, is just buff the defense, give me the resistance sooner, give me the option to do immunity, and then once figuring out, like, again, and these ones, I don't mind it getting additional resistances. I just would I would choose to make sure that all of these additional resistances make sense to the armor.
To what's happening.
Right? Because we know that it's the metal itself is vulnerable to acid. So to me, it doesn't make sense that you, with the armor on, would get resistance to acid.
Right.
Right? But if but cold or fire, it's like, again, that if you're not going to bother with the material, being able to choose which one your armor protects you against would be awesome.
Yes.
Right? Just, hey, I'm going to be protected against fire this time around. So, like, just honing in on what, like, Radiant. Radiant's awesome. It's full of lead. Boom. Radiant damage makes perfect sense that you should be able to be protected against it. I'm shining it back off you. I'm a mirror. Like, I would definitely tighten it down into the things that make the most sense against metal, and then just kind of start it earlier. And then Mercury Ally, your connection to your Mercurial now allows you to tap into its senses as a bonus action. You may see or hear what Mercurial Ally does. Additionally, your Mercurial Ally attacks have strengthened even further, now dealing 1d8. So at level 15, I think I was on board with you before. Earlier, it should have been a 1d8, so it should have gone 1d4 to 1d8. Now we could give it a 1d10. Now it could basically be what we were when we first had it, right? Now it could be a peasant on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Still be good. So I would like to have seen a 10, and 100%. I think that the even as an act before, we should have been able to do this, the C, to tap into its senses. I think that should have been at least offered at level 9 as an action, and then at level 15 you
get it as a bonus action.
But I think it's missing early on, because that would be so clutch, like you said before with the other familiars. It's such a clutch aspect to have, but I can see the action economy of making it an action first and then a bonus action later. Because realistically, you're not going to really care about doing it in combat as much as you are going to want to spy and,
for sure,
and recon.
For sure.
And again, then you add it with the fly. So now if you do my fly thing for the 60 feet, I could throw it up there, do a circle, and then you could actually, like...
Nice little overview.
And then finally, when you cast this spell with a range of 30 feet or less, your ally can deliver... Finally, when you cast a spell with a range of 30 feet or less, your ally can deliver the spell as if it had cast the spell. Your ally must be within 100 feet of you, and it must use its reaction to deliver the spell when you cast it. If the spell requires an attack roll, your attack modifier, use your attack modifier. So basically, if it's within 100 feet of you and you cast a spell, you can cast it from them. As long as the spell you're casting has a range of 30 feet or less. Yeah. But if they're within 100 feet, you can cast it from them, essentially.
So you can get basically an extended 130-foot range on a 30-foot range spell.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it's specifically wherever your little man's is reconning.
Yeah, and I because I was kind of thinking, like, man, I would think, like, if you're gonna do 30 foot, if he's within 30 feet, so basically doubling the distance. But this is definitely much more of a remote casting. Like, you can remote cast it. So, yeah. I just thought of a really cool, like, fun combo. I wouldn't add it to the actual sheet. Like I wouldn't add it to the subclass, but this would just be something kind of like specific to High Point. Is I'd ask, like, if I were working for my DM on this, I'd be like, hey, so I can give it a spell, right? Like, because it's my spell focus, I can put a spell into it, and it can cast its own. It can cast that spell for me, right? Mm-hmm. So first, I'd work with them, and be like, hey, if I use it as my spell casting focus and turn it into an ally, so I imbue it with a spell, can my ally cast that spell through itself? So first, I'd try to convince my DM to let me do that, because I think that would be kind of cool. But either way, would be kind of nice that if the spell I imbued in it, how cool would it be to also have an opportunity to where if I imbue it with a spell, if I cast that spell and it's within a certain range of me, it can use its reaction to simultaneously cast its spell. So, like,
I mean, if you set it up with like a healing spell or something,
like a healing spell or something like Magic Missile.
Yeah.
So just imagine basically being able to say, hey, I'm gonna imbue this thing with a spell, and at any point, if I cast that spell and it still has its reaction, I want it to cast that spell at the same target. So imagine just being with like 2 fireballs, just honing in on the same. Like, I think that would be kind of cool, is to set up like a personalized like relay system to where it's like, if I cast a spell, it casts that same spell. I think that would be like a High Point only thing. I think that'd be too complicated for this. But
no, I kind of like that.
Okay, so yeah, so you can cast through it, and then that is it. No level 20 for this guy. So out of the box, I really dig a lot of the ideas in this. So I have thought a lot about, like, with the bending classes and a lot of the other classes that I've had in High Point. I've thought a lot about like metals, everything from like metallic dragons to metal bending, alchemy. I've thought about a lot of different metals, but this has given me a new idea for how to approach metals. Like the ferrofluid, the idea that mercury is poisonous, right? Like it's making me not take such a linear process when looking at how to incorporate metalworking into D&D. So it's definitely going to get the inspiration point.
I love it.
I need this in D&D? No, I don't need this in High Point specifically, but it is going to give me the inspiration, because I do think that there are areas I've overlooked in this respect.
Interesting. Okay.
Now,
I'm glad we're going to be talking about earthbending later.
With that being said,
I'm going to be right back. Keep going.
With that being said, I will say that as is, and I think Des, you've already made mention of this, it isn't the most balanced, and it would take a lot more for me to really tool this into making sense for High Point, both on the mechanical balance side as well as just some of the lore. I really like what you're going with here, but I'd have to fix it in just a little bit differently. I would have to put in a lot more work into the materials. I think for High Point, metal is not, it's too generic, and obviously what I would probably end up doing is start with something like this so I could have a bunch of different players customize different ideas for different metals, and then I would start to build it out from there. But similar to how I did the bending class, where I would like do the subclasses for each of the elements, I think that's what I would end up doing here. Is I think kind of like with dragons, I would lay out the base metals and maybe a couple extra ones, and then lay out what I would do for each of those if people wanted to specialize, and then I would also knock out a couple like alloys and maybe allow that for higher levels. And no, I totally agree with you. The intent was really awesome. The thematics are really cool with this. Like, as I said, it's getting a bunch of bonuses, but yeah, it's just the approach is a little bit rough, but all of the ideas are there. I really do like this. I just think that when it comes to trying to look at the compatibility with High Point, the two biggest struggles I have are the lore when it comes to the materials, and again some of the consistencies with like the resistances and how the progression would go. But with all of that, it's not going to completely tank, because you definitely get the point for the inspiration, and I really do just overall like the flow and the feel of this. The flow doesn't feel imbalanced, and most of the powers aren't really imbalanced. In fact, I think we wanted to boost several of them. So when we talk about imbalance, that doesn't mean OP. So I think this
definitely.
one, you know, I think this one runs that fine line right down the center. I think this deserves a 5. Like, it has a lot of imbalance. It has a lot of changes that would have been sub 5, having to really make it work for high point. But that inspiration of, you know, like I say, the inspiration, it inspires me to do something in high point. But I think that inspiration in terms of the score is indicative a lot of potential. If it inspires me to change something in high point, it means that there's something here that's very valuable. It's just not being represented the right way yet. So I would say, a good 5 out of 10. It is. It's not OP. It's not weak. It's kind of its own thing. It's unique. It needs a little bit of work, but you know what? I dig it. I would like to play it, but even as a player, there's a couple tweaks that I would work on with the DM on. Or even if I don't work on the tweaks, there's definitely a lot of things that I would try to spin in game.
Right.
To kind of make them feel a little bit more tangible. But I like it. I don't think that there's anything wrong with this. I just think that, a little bit of tweaking here and there, a little bit of fine tuning, and I think this thing could be an absolutely solid subclass.
Fire. I'm here for it. I'm definitely here for it.
Sweet, absolutely fantastic. All right, well, that is awesome. Thank you so much, Des, for submitting that. If you do end up doing any revisions, or if you do end up wanting to, take another stab at this one, definitely let us know. We do offer up 1 review per item, so if you want us to take a look at any updates, let us know. I would definitely like to see what you come up with. But yeah, thank you so much for that. That was really awesome.
Or if nothing else, you can just talk about it in the home brewing.
Or just submit any ideas, or submit it to the home brewing chat channel and see what other people think about it. But like I said when we started this, I am absolutely exhausted. I'm glad we made it through that, but I think I am just going to call it here with no big preamble. I think I just got to go and relax for the rest of the night. So, Des, thank you so much for the submission. It was absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely awesome.
2 things before we go. Can you let them know what is next week's item? And after next week's item, can you let Des know? Because I think Des has had a couple submissions now.
Yeah.
So can you let Des know their average?
Oh, yes. Let's take a look at that.
Because that's what we like to do. Every once we get a handful of submissions from a single person, we like to give him out the average. I think Cosmic kind of started. He started asking what his average was, so now we want to start being like, after everyone gets like a little bit, might as well give out the average, because that's going to be kind of nice for everybody. And then we can know what next week's item is. And then I don't have a topic decided yet for Friday. I haven't sat down to do the research, but
got it.
I will post that in Discord once I have it set.
So next week's item is a Pokeniner submission, but it is not one of his many subclasses.
Oh, finally.
It is a little break. I decided to insert this a little earlier, even though it got submitted after the subclasses. It is a sub-race. It is a sub-race of dwarf called the I don't know how to pronounce that. Dhimlin.
Say that one more time.
Dhimlin.
I will tackle that one later.
Yeah, exactly.
But what is it? It's not a subclass.
It's a dwarf sub race.
Oh, it's the sub race.
Sub race of dwarf, chasm dwarf.
Okay.
But it's called the whatever.
Okay, well we will look at that. I don't think have we had a race yet?
We've had a sub race, yes. I think wasn't it wasn't it Cosmic's Phoenix Folk?
We did the
Eric
Phoenix Folk.
Okra
Yes. Okay.
Subrace.
That's right. Okay, so it won't be the first one that we've gotten, but it will be. It sounds spicy.
Yes.
And then did you look? Were you able to pull up Dez's average?
Average. Let's see.
By the way, if you guys are ever interested, we do have the leaderboard posted in the Discord. You can take a look at a viewer-only copy. It'll show you all of the things that we've reviewed. It'll show you the names, the scores, who submitted it. There are links to not only each episode that we reviewed it in, so you can follow along, but as Kage continues to work on it, the write-ups are also available. So if you are interested in anything that we've reviewed, if you want to read back up on it, and or if you want to go and watch the episode and read along, you can do that through the Discord. Link is in chat. Always a good way to plug it.
Yes, I don't know what happened, but
is the average thing not working no more?
It got rid of my entire filter, so I put it back, and we're gonna.
I wonder if I broke it somehow when I was using it.
No, I don't think so. It shouldn't even.
Because you weren't here for like 2 weeks, man. I could have broken a lot of stuff when you weren't here. Who knows?
Oh goodness, no. All right, there's that. Okay, and then okay. So technically, we only have 2.
Oh, I thought we had at least 3.
We do have 3, but we haven't done the third one yet.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
The third one is Unicron.
Oh, okay. So once we get there, we'll have a better average.
And you know what's funny? I just watched that. I just watched that Transformers movie with Unicron in it last night with my girlfriend.
Nice.
Yeah, that's one of her favorites. I don't know why, because it's got all the animal Transformers in it. You get the gorilla. And
the Beast, the Beast Wars.
Yes,
I remember that. Yeah.
Lightweight.
All right, cool. So I think Des then had a 7 and a 5 now.
It was a 6 and a 5. Conversionalist got a 6.
Okay.
And the
so
Mercurialist got a 5.
average. So okay, not bad. Above average. Rise of the Beasts. Oh, is that what it was called? Rise of the Beast?
Yeah, Rise of the Beast.
Gotcha.
Rise of the Beast, yeah.
I never saw it. I just remember the anime or the cartoon way back when.
Oh, yeah.
The Transformers Beast Wars, I think it was called.
Yes, yeah. They had like dinosaur ones in there too.
Yeah,
they had all kinds of.
It's a crazy one.
Yeah.
But okay, so we have a sub race next week. I will come up with the topic by the end of the week and post that in Discord, and then hopefully we will continue from there. Thank you everybody for showing up. Obviously Des was here, Hecate was here. Cosmic, I think, may have
Cosmic popped in a couple of times. Yeah,
popped in once or twice. So we appreciate you all for showing up and continuing your support. We had a huge, crazy stream earlier today. Probably not worth checking out, but you can also check out earlier today's stream if you guys want to go watch us hang out for 6 hours while we work on the wall. The 1986 Transformers movie is better than Rise of the Beast. Yeah, probably.
They're bad movies. Like they're not great, but I mean
they're visually nice.
Yeah,
you know what? Honestly, watch them on mute and they look great.
I mean, listen, whenever she turns them on, it's like just background noise. It's just on back there and just some sound effects, and I'm doing other stuff. You know, it's great. It's great.
It's fine. 7 live action Transformer movies, 2 of them are good. Yeah. Yeah, and that's debatable. Yeah, but anyway, that's for a different day. So that's gonna be us for the rest of today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you guys liked what you saw here today, and if you wanted to catch anything that you missed, if you wanted to catch earlier today's live stream, or if you wanted to catch anything that we've done previously, you can catch that all on YouTube on our VODs channel. That link is also now in chat. If you want to give us ideas to talk about on Fridays, if you want to submit something that you want us to review here on Mondays, you can do that through the Discord. That link has already been in chat, but I'll post it again just one more time. But yeah, that is going to be us for the rest of the day. So thank you so much. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope you have a fantastic week ahead of you. We will be back on Friday with probably another history of or just another deep dive topic. So hope you all had fun. Take care of yourselves. Have a good rest of your night. Cheers.
Deuces, my friends.